97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on a Monday edition of the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. As always, the Sports Bash is streaming live on YouTube and X. Just go to 973 ESPN on the YouTube platform. Yes, to all who celebrate, happy Austin 316 Day. Crazy weekend in sports. From the WBC strike, not strike call situation with Juan Soto. Eagles finally bring Dallas Goedert back to the nest. Aaron Nola with another big start coming up for the WBC for Team Italy. You know, Aaron Nola saved Team USA in the WBC. Now he's trying to help Italy get to the final against USA. Also, shout out to the Ocean City boys basketball team. They won the New Jersey State Group 3 title yesterday. They are the first Cape May County high school team to do so since the Middle Township boys team did it in 2002. It is Ocean City's first overall state title since 1964. So congratulations to the boys team. And you will hear from head coach for the last 37 years, John Bruno. He will join us coming up at 5 o'clock today here on the Sports Bash. And, of course, all of you out there have another opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway. Just listen to the sounder coming up on the Sports Bash, the end of each hour here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, here's the rundown of the show today. Mike McGarry for the Press Atlantic City is back with us, joining us at 2:30 as always. Cayden Steele covers the Eagles for NJ.com. You've heard him throughout the football season here on 97.3 ESPN. He has been closely covering all of this Eagles Dallas Goedert stuff that's been going on. We'll get into it with him coming up at 3 o'clock because, you know, if you would have asked me a month ago what was going on with Goedert, my assumption was he was not coming back. And I think it's a huge, huge conversational point that he is back. And we'll get into that, what that means coming up in just a bit. Football at 4, as always, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher joins us to get also into all of the Eagles conversation. Knicks Nuggets, as always, at 4:30. And as I mentioned, Ocean City boys basketball coach John Bruno will join us coming up at 5 p.m. Whitehorse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. Tell me how you guys are feeling. Dallas Goedert is back. What does it mean? Well, I want to break down the weekend because this all started Friday night when the Eagles pushed the void date for Dallas Goedert back to Monday. Now, the conversation we had on Saturday with me hanging with Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on a Monday edition of the Bash, we talked about how the Eagles don't want to take on multiple dead cap hits, right? They didn't want the big money hitting them from Dallas Goedert. They don't want to absorb a huge cap hit when it comes to A.J. Brown. So we knew basically from late last week until yesterday that in some capacity, either Goedert's deal will get done or A.J. Brown will be traded this weekend. And the news came down yesterday, Goedert was back in the fold. And like I said, I'm a little surprised that he is back because Goedert had the best year of his career. Those 11 touchdowns he had last year, the previous 4 years, he had 12 touchdown catches. Last year, he had 11. My working theory all along is that, hey, it was a tenuous situation when they brought him back last year. Remember, they kept delaying it. And they finally brought him back on that 1 year, $10 million deal. And my theory all along was, hey, he's going to want to hit the free agent market. He's going to want to test himself, see what he can get on the free agent market. And apparently, myself, many people, we had this all wrong. Goedert didn't just re-sign to come back to Philadelphia this weekend. He signed for less money than they gave him last year. Remember, he reworked his deal last year to get $10 million salary with $1 million in incentives. Now he's taking a pay cut. He's going to make up to $7 million this year is the total value. His signing bonus is $4.25 million. That is a huge statement by Dallas Goedert and the Eagles that they are in this together. This is not a guy who is just going out to get money. And to be blunt, no offense to Jalen Phillips, but Jalen Phillips going on Good Morning Football this morning on NFL Network and saying he went to Carolina for the culture is the biggest load of horse manure on the planet. Jalen Phillips, you went to Carolina for the money. Dallas Goedert could have done the same. He could have hit the free agent market and said, hey, I had 11 touchdown catches extra. I had the best year of my career. Hey, let's get a bidding war. He said, no, I want to come back to Philadelphia. I want to be in Philadelphia. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport earlier today explaining the Eagles and Dallas Goedert reaching an agreement yesterday.
Late yesterday afternoon, Dallas Goedert, 31-year-old tight end who's been with the Eagles his entire career, won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, agreed to terms on a 1-year, $7 million deal for him to stay in Philadelphia. Now, on the field, that is significant. He has been a very good player coming off a career year, still 31 years old.
The 31 years old part is interesting because does anyone feel like Dallas Goedert has gotten older? Like, is that 31 representative of just his real world age or his football age? Because we know a lot of times athletes start regressing in the football world in their 30s. But yet Dallas Goedert had the best year of his career last year. So do we look at that as, hey, him and Jalen have great chemistry? Hey, we need Dallas Goedert if we are to unload A.J. Brown. I think it's a lot of the above. And I think the 1-year deal is an opportunity to, for lack of a better term, put a little pressure on Goedert to be like, hey, man, we're not locked into you long term. We're going year by year on this deal. We are not going to sit here and just give you all kinds of money. So to me, I look at the situation and I see Goedert, a guy who didn't even try to test free agency, who came back to Philadelphia. And as Ian Rappaport says, that them moving back the void date said a lot about both the Eagles and Goedert.
There was a void date in his contract. In other words, at a certain point, and it was various dates over the last week or so, he was going to become a free agent. Then $20 million of dead money was going to hit the Eagles' cap. They moved it back. Trying to work out a deal with Dallas Goedert. Eventually, that is exactly what happened.
So he comes back. He's being paid less money than he would have gotten last year, right? He is coming off of a career year, but he's 31 years old. New offense, by the way. An offense that has not been a tight end dominant offense in the NFL. Here and there, you have seen guys like Tucker Kraft, Tyler Higbee, and what's his name in Minnesota? TJ Hawkinson have performed well in the McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur schemes. And really the only tight end who has played at an elite level is George Kittle. But I think we all agree that George Kittle himself is elite. It's not that The offense is making him elite. So Goedert is coming back to an unknown situation as well when it comes to the offense. He got to learn the offense like everyone else. So now that we have Goedert in the fold, what does this mean for A.J. Brown? So we talked about this weekend on Hanging with Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Let's circle back to the Goedert A.J. Brown connective tissue.
But the reason why this was a conversation, along with Goedert being a good player, is this was tied directly to the A.J. Brown situation as well, with many people thinking, okay, well, if they let Dallas Goedert walk, then they potentially that involves, all right, maybe A.J. Brown stays. If they keep Goedert, maybe A.J. Brown goes. My understanding is there's been no official change in the Brown situation, but I think for the Eagles, Dallas Goedert being back is a big-time move for their offense.
So what do you guys think? Let me know. The White Horse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. Of course, White Horse RV Centers in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at White Horse RV. Also, we are streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. That's where Angie was first to chime in. She chimed in on the video stream. She says, I don't think the market was there for Goedert due to his injury history. I think Howie is going to take a big swing for a tight end in this draft and that they will develop him. I still love the move of adding Goedert. Well, Angie, I think that I don't want to say the market was or wasn't there for Goedert because he never went to market. It's hard to I think we might assume there might not have been a market, but I just have trouble believing that in an NFL where teams, 20 out of 32 teams would all love Dallas Goedert. The only teams that would not sign Goedert are what? The Chiefs, the 49ers, I guess the Seahawks, maybe not. Bills, Browns, I guess the Lions. So I thought of 6 off the top of my head. 7 with the Bears. The Bears only a tight end. So there's basically 7 teams that would not have a direct need for Goedert, but the rest of the NFL does. So I don't know if it's fair to say his market wasn't there. I think that the point about the injury history is more of the point, which is how did the injury history impact how Goedert looks at the market, how the NFL looks at him, and how the Eagles look at him. You're 100% right, Angie. They are going to draft they're going to draft tight end because that's the Eagles' history. They drafted L.J. Smith when Chad Lewis was still here. They drafted Brent Selleck when L.J. Smith was here. Then they drafted Zach Ertz with Brent Selleck mentoring him. They drafted Goedert with Ertz mentoring him. And I think in Philadelphia's mind, they were hoping that Grant Calcaterra was going to be the heir apparent to Dallas Goedert. But Calcaterra has proven himself to not be anywhere in the same conversation as the other tight ends I just named. Calcaterra is a nice, solid tight end who can catch the ball. But he's a horrible blocker. He has injury history of his own. And when you break it down, you really have to look at it this way. I don't think it's, shall I call it fair, right? To expect Calcaterra now to all of a sudden just grow and evolve into some sort of, stud player. Because he's already 27, turning 28 years old this upcoming season. He's pretty much is who he is. And that's why they got to draft the tight end. And listen, we will be talking about it for the next several weeks here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Josh Hennig hanging out with you, filling in for Mike Gill. We'll get to the White Horse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973. The draft has some interesting tight ends. I am personally a big fan of Eli Stowers, the tight end from Vanderbilt. I know a lot of people are very enamored with Kenyon Sadiq, but I don't think Sadiq's going to make it to the Eagles at 23. I think Philadelphia had to trade up to get Sadiq, and I don't think Sadiq is, for as gifted of an athlete that he is, I don't know if trading up for a tight end is the smartest move. So that's why, to me, a guy like an Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt or a Max Clare from Ohio State, you can draft those guys in the second round and still get a very high-end tight end. If those guys, for whatever reason, are not available, you have Eli Raritan of Notre Dame or a Jack Enders from Texas you can get maybe in the third round. So there are some good tight ends to get in the draft. There's not, after Sadiq, I don't think there's like an elite tight end, but you know what? No one really thought about Dallas Goedert when he was drafted, right? I remember when Dallas Goedert was drafted. It was almost a joke at the Eagles drafted him because the Eagles traded up to get ahead of the Dallas Cowboys in order to select him. And I remember we all were joking back in 2018, like, look at the Eagles. They took a guy named Dallas away from Dallas. Like, it was actually like a bit of a joke before we actually like knew or cared who Dallas Goedert was, because he didn't play major college football. He was from an FCS school. He was a guy who, he didn't even go to North Dakota State. He went to South Dakota State. Most people didn't even know that he was in the draft. And the two tight ends that were taken ahead of him were both considered elite athletes coming into the draft. That being Mike Gesicki and Hayden Hurst. I know Gesicki was drafted by Miami. I think Hurst drafted by Baltimore, because Baltimore, I believe, drafted two tight ends that year. I think it was Hurst and Mark Andrews. But my point is that there were a lot of guys in that draft who were much highly more regarded and looked at than Goedert is. And yet, Goedert is the one, when you look at the stats, right? When you look at the numbers, when you look at the career that he has been able to put together, for a guy who was the third tight end and probably the least known of all the tight ends, he's going on to have a pretty darn good career. The only tight end in that draft class who ended up with more touchdown catches than him is the aforementioned Mark Andrews. Gesicki's had a solid career, but he's never lived up to, being the number 2 tight end in the draft. Not part of that is that he's played some bad teams in Miami, but still. Hayden Hurst had a nice start to his career, but he's faded off due to injuries. So Goedert is a bit of an overlooked guy, so I'm not going to act like this draft class can't produce a good tight end, because I already know Philadelphia has found a way to find a good tight end in years past. All the guys I mentioned, Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz, Brent Selleck, LJ Smith, none of those guys were first-round draft picks. They were all second, third, fourth type draft picks. Goedert and Ertz were both second-round picks. And Selleck was definitely not. I think he was a 4th or 5th round pick. So I trust the Eagles organization to find a tight end. I don't think if you don't get Sadiq, it's going to be that much of a negative for Philadelphia. Ray and EHT chimes in the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Ray says, it's a huge statement that Dallas is telling us the locker room might be in some disarray, as we are saying the Eagles organization might like the best organization to work for. Why would you want to take less money as a good tight end as he is, so to speak, volumes about the Eagles organization, that locker room, in my opinion, says Ray and AHT. Ray does say a lot about the Eagles, because for Goedert to theoretically take less money, and again, I'm not criticizing Jalen Phillips for getting the bag, okay? I'm a big believer in someone's willing to pay you something, that's what your worth is, okay? I'm not going to sit here and tell you fill in the blank person is not worth $30 million, because at the end of the day, if we want to get really, really nuanced, nobody's worth $30 million, right? Especially no athlete, unless their marketing potential is, people like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, right? But guess what? Dallas said, I want to stay in Philadelphia. I appreciate the Eagles organization. I think that they could use me. And right in the AFC is right for all the negative out there that has been put out about the Eagles organization. Remember, they were not highly ranked in the NFLPA player poll the last couple of years in certain categories. This is the organization that has been criticized by people on the outside about how they handle their business with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. And obviously Sirianni gets criticized a lot by people who are outside the building. So to me, I look at Philadelphia and I say, you got a really good player here. You got a good player who wants to come back. But again, I will reiterate. It doesn't mean you don't draft the guy. I think they will. Now, it doesn't mean A.J. Brown's getting traded either. A.J. Brown still has people out there interested in trading for him. I think Goedert is here as an insurance policy. Because if the Eagles do move on from A.J. Brown, it's very easy for you to look at Brown and say, you know what, we can let you go because we still have Goedert, we still have Devontae Smith. Phil and Brigantine chimes in on the text board, the White Horse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Phil says, Josh, I'm happy Goedert is back. I'd love to see the Eagles sign Juwan Jennings if they trade A.J. Brown. Jennings can play the outside. If they keep A.J., imagine the offense with him playing in the slot. That would be Juwan Jennings he's talking about. He says, the new offense I'm hearing will focus more on motion and passing to the middle of the field, more so than previous iterations, says Phil and Brigantine. Well, Phil, a couple things. One, I agree with you. I think Jennings would be a great addition whether they trade Brown or not. I think the problem for Jennings is that Jennings needs to make a decision about how seriously he wants money in this free agent market. I think Jennings is still available on March 16th because I think he went into the market thinking he was like the number 2 wide receiver, and he hasn't got a deal yet. And I think that when you don't get a deal initially, guys start thinking, man, am I going to get what I really want on the open market? So I tend to believe that Jennings is probably going to be in a situation like Tariq Woolen, where he's going to be asked to just take like a 1-year deal or like a prove-it kind of contract in order to basically reestablish himself to get back in the market, because Jennings himself does have an injury history. Now, you mentioned about the new offense. Sean Mannion is definitely going to use more motion than Patullo or Brian Johnson ever did. But I think that the whole middle of the field thing, I will be curious to find out if what you're saying is true or not, because there's always been this argument when it comes to Jalen Hurts. Is Jalen Hurts afraid to throw over the middle? Or is Jalen Hurts being told not to throw over the middle? How many times is Jalen Hurts making a decision because, as Nick Foles has described on the season's podcast, or Kurt Warner described on his YouTube channel, about how a lot of the Eagles' plays last year were only the one side of the field, where Hurts only looked left and he would never look right. Or Hurts would look one option, two option, and then run the ball. Or Hurts would, in the offensive system, there would be 4 options, but he would never get to option 4 because, maybe the coach is in his ear telling him, hey, the safety is high overhead, forget the 4th option, only go through 1 and 2. So I will be interested to find out, Phil and Brigantine, how much of what we're seeing from Jalen last year was a byproduct of the coordinator and how much of it was a byproduct of Jalen Hurts. We'll get more of your messages coming up in just a bit. 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up, Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. We'll get into the weekend with him. WBC, Phillies, Ocean City boys basketball team winning the Group Stage 3 title. McGarry's perspective on all the news of the weekend. And then we got Eagles Talk with NJ.com Eagles beat writer Cayden Steele at 3 p.m. Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher. Knicks Nuggets at 4:30. And Ocean City High School basketball coach John Bruno coming up at 5. All that and more still to come. And don't forget, your next opportunity to qualify when you hear the sounder at the end of each hour right here on the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank, Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X. Go to YouTube at 973 ESPN.
Get ready for the madness. March Madness on 97.3 ESPN. You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill
Never thought this radio stunt would catch on so big.
on 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, streaming live on YouTube and X. Well, it was certainly a busy weekend in sports between all the college basketball tournaments wrapping up. You could hear all of the NCAA tournament action right here on 97.3 ESPN. First four at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday and Wednesday nights. And then all day Thursday and Friday from noon to midnight, all the college basketball action right here on your home for the NCAA tournament in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN. Also listen to all the games on 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Mike McGarry of the Press Atlantic City, he had a busy weekend as well. We'll get into all that with him right now on the Sports Bash. Mike, welcome in. How you doing today?
Hey, Josh, how are you? I'm doing fine today.
Well, I think you're at least doing better maybe than Juan Soto and his teammates after the whatever you want to call that happened yesterday about they're basically making it like, they lost because of a call. But, Mike, I tend to think that the U.S. advanced because I got to give Mark DeRosa a lot of credit. Starting Gunnar Henderson ended up being the move that changed the whole game.
Yeah, the United States wins that game 2-1, right? There was a couple of questionable ball strike calls, including the last out of the game coming on a strikeout. Guy gets caught looking at a strikeout there. Mason Miller does the job there. Really interesting game last night. I think in my discussions with Mike Gill earlier last week, I don't think either one of us is a big World Baseball Classic type of game. I just get nervous sitting guys out there. Like, I don't imagine if you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, if those people exist anymore, how you sit there and watch Paul Skeens pitch last night. I mean, I'd be on the edge of my seat. And again, I think you got Aaron Nola going tonight for Italy on 4 days rest.
Yep.
I think it's really interesting. If you're a Phillies fan, how are you watching that game tonight? So one of the things that I think this tournament can provide great theater sometimes, as it did a couple of years ago when it ended with Ohtani striking out Mike Trout. But I also think, is it the best for your baseball team? And certainly in some cases, i.e. the New York Mets a couple of years ago when Edwin Diaz tore his patella tendon in this thing, it can derail your season. So while I'm watching the games with some entertainment, I'm also kind of holding my breath at the same time.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Italian team, what they did is they starting Aaron Nola on short rest because they want to keep Michael Lorenzen for a potential matchup with the USA again. Read into that what you will, Mike McGarry. But it is a little nervous. You're right, because there's a part of you as a baseball fan of your team, right? Mets, Phillies, whoever, and you look around like, I don't want my guy to get hurt because you guys are trying to win a title that, it's cool that they're playing for national pride, but this ain't the Olympics, Mike McGarry.
Exactly. And one of the interesting things last night, now this might say more about Juan Soto. I watched Juan Soto play for the Mets all day a ton of times last year, and I had no problem with this. But Juan Soto never not known for exactly getting out of the batter's box and hustling down to first base with a sense of importance on a ground ball. And last night he ran just about the fastest I've ever seen him run down to first base, trying to beat out a double play ball in this game. So it's great that the competition means that much to these guys, and they're willing to invest in it and play as hard as they are. But at the same time, again, if you're a Phillies fan tonight, is it the wisest thing for Aaron Nola to go on, 4 days rest again, go out there, throw 70, 75 pitches? You can argue that he'd be doing the same thing in spring training, but, there's obviously a big difference between this World Baseball Classic game and the semifinal game. Are you putting mileage on Aaron Nola's arm right now in March to get Italy to the World Baseball Classic final? And is this going to impact Aaron Nola in September or October when the Phillies need him? To me, that's the point of this tournament, and why the tournament, although produces some drama and some great moments, makes me a little squeamish kind of watching it a little bit.
Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Monday edition of the show. Looking ahead, you mentioned about the Phillies. We've seen Nola pitch well in the WBC. We've seen certain guys play well in the WBC. But the last time we played the WBC, Mike McGarry, remember Trey Turner played great, and then he came to Philadelphia. He didn't play so well. So, are we looking at the WBC and wondering, are these guys maybe playing too well and that they won't be able to do their 100% when they start the season next week?
Yeah, for the position players, I don't worry as much, about the position players, because I don't think a couple of extra at-bats here or there is going to impact them. I just worry about the pitchers and the health of pitchers that you've got invested in. And you mentioned the Trey Turner thing. Maybe Phillies fans are having the opposite effect here with Bryce Harper, who has not had a great tournament so far, and so maybe he'll be better once the season starts. But I don't worry so much about the position guys, Josh. I worry more about the pitchers putting stress on their arms this early in the season and what impact that will have on them as the season progresses.
Speaking of how the season progresses, Mike, let's talk about how the offseason has been progressing in the NFL. I got to tell you, Mike, when the season initially ended, I never thought Dallas Goedert would be back for the Eagles. And now looking around, and they got this deal that they're pushing back his void date twice. What does it say to you that Dallas Goedert was saying, hey, I don't even want to go to free agency. I want to come back to Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, when people started mentioning that Dallas Goedert might not be on the Eagles next year, I started wondering, well, why? I mean, the guy caught 11 touchdown passes last year, caught 60 passes, had nearly 600 yards of receiving. That makes him one of the top 10 receiving tight ends in all of football. He was clearly a guy that was important to Hurts, kind of a guy that Hurts relied on. I don't want to say he's kind of a safety blanket, but he was a primary target for Jalen Hurts. Now, I understand that his blocking dropped off, but, I think we'd agree that the blocking across the entire offensive line dropped off last year.
Exactly.
So I'm not surprised that they were able to make this work, and it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, because if you're talking about not bringing back Dallas Goedert, and you're not going to bring back – you might not bring back A.J. Brown, and you already got rid of John Dotson – who's catching passes for the Philadelphia Eagles if you don't bring these guys back? That would be the question. So to me, it makes perfect sense for Goedert and the Eagles to come back on a one-year deal. Let Goedert play here under the new offense, a new offense that supposedly kind of likes tight ends and emphasizes tight ends even more than the previous offense. So let's see what Goedert can do under these circumstances. And you basically kick the decision down the road a year. So I'm not surprised that the Eagles and Goedert worked this out, because, again, I come back to, if you let Goedert walk and you let Dotson walk and you let A.J. Brown walk, who's catching passes next year?
Yeah, it turns into a very interesting shell game. And I think most people who watched the Packers last year saw how that worked out for them. Yeah, they got a nice offense, but when they started losing receivers to injuries last year, the Packers started having a lot of problems as last year progressed. So, and I mentioned the Packers because for those who might forget, Sean Mannion is the new offensive coordinator for Philadelphia. Mike McGarry joining us from the Press of Atlantic City here on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, looking ahead this offseason, what is your takeaway so far from free agency overall? Has there been like a storyline or something that has stood out to you so far?
Yeah, the one thing that I was thinking about the other day and this not necessarily has to do with free agency, but I was just thinking about the NFC East, and I'll throw this out to you, Josh. Is there a better division in football with 4 better quarterbacks than the NFC? You've got Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, okay, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl winner. You've got Jayden Daniels in Washington, who as a rookie, banged up last year, but as a rookie took the Commanders to the NFC title game. You have Dak Prescott in Dallas, perennial one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And now you've got Jackson Dart, at the Giants, who was one of the top rookie quarterbacks last year. So I think if you look around football and you look at the different divisions, is there a better division out there with 4 better quarterbacks than the NFC East has? I'd be interested. What do you think? Because I think you can make a case that though the NFC East, might have the best quarterback depth in football.
That's an interesting question because I'm thinking about the other divisions right now, and for as much as people might want to criticize any one of the guys you just named, I'm thinking about the other divisions, and every division has like one major flaw. Like, for example, the AFC West. Yeah, you got Mahomes, Herbert, and Knicks. But the fourth guy is, we think, obviously, because they had the first overall pick, it's Mendoza, right? So I think there's a drop-off from Mendoza from the rest of those guys. I think that's fair to say. So, maybe the only division that could compete is the AFC West, but even the AFC North, like Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and then there's a drop-off. So it feels like the other divisions, they might be a little top-heavy, but like their third and fourth guy just doesn't muster up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think you go to the NFC North, right? You've got Bryce Love with the Packers. You got Caleb Williams with the Bears. You've got Goff with the Lions, and then you've got who with the Minnesota Vikings, right? So, like you said, there a lot of other divisions have 2.5, maybe 3 guys. I don't know if there's another division out there with 4 quality quarterbacks like you have in the NFC East, where you go into a division game and you are facing a quarterback who has had some success in this league and will be a challenge to your team. So that's my big takeaway for football right now. I think maybe we might be getting ourselves back to a period of the late 80s, 90s when the NFC East was king. Because if you look at the quarterbacks, there are 4 good ones in that division, and not every division can kind of pull that off.
Mike, a couple more before I let you go. You were in the building for Ocean City High School. The boys team, John Bruno leading them to the Group 3 state title. They're the first Cape May County team to do so, to get a state title since Middle Township in 2002. Take the audience inside the building. What was the vibe like when they finally clinched it?
Yeah, just a great day yesterday up at Rutgers, Jersey Mike's Arena for Ocean City to win their first state title since 1964. And 2 quick things that stood out is, first of all, this is the way high school sports is supposed to be. The Ocean City boys basketball team, the guys grew up together. They played out of the same rec programs. They were on the same travel teams. They've been on the same team together since they were in the 4th or 5th grade. They're a bunch of neighborhood kids, and they come out and win a state title. That's what high school sports is supposed to be. And second of all, the unselfishness with the way they played yesterday was really remarkable. I've never seen a team play a more unselfish game in a big moment than I saw the Ocean City boys basketball team play yesterday. And the numbers were right there. Josh, they had 20 baskets and 17 assists. So they made 17 assists on their 20 baskets, which is really a remarkable figure. And these assists weren't like they passed to a guy who made a 25-foot jump shot. No, 7, 8, 9 of these assists led directly to wide open layups. So it was just a joy to watch a team of neighborhood kids kind of reach the pinnacle of the high school sports world. And the way they did it with their unselfish play made it even more remarkable. If you go to pressofac.com, we have stories and videos and photos up from yesterday. Just a great day to watch the neighborhood kids win a state title and to watch the way they did it, playing such unselfish brand of basketball. It was really, really nice to see yesterday.
What does it also say about head coach, John Bruno? This is a guy who's been there for almost 40 years. He's 37 years into it. I mean, he was coaching when I was in high school, Mike McGarry. So, I mean, this is a guy who's had the staying power at the job, and I'm sure he probably could have retired anytime he wanted. But for him to have this this level of stability for Ocean City, and then to, for lack of a better term, pay off for a championship yesterday. You saw the emotion on his face after the game.
Yeah, John, it just seemed to be a little bit overwhelmed, or described it as surreal. I think he came up with a great quote saying that he never envisioned himself leading Ocean City to a state title. He always thought it was the other guys, the Gene Allens at Atlantic City, the Joe Kesslers at Shawnee, the Tom Farracos at Middle Township that won state titles, not him. But now he gets one, and, this state title, puts him now, makes him one of the most accomplished coaches in Cape Atlantic League boys basketball history. He goes down in the record books. It seems funny to say that one win, on a game changes, your career legacy. But, Josh, this is the business we choose. And when you win the big one, the victor go the spoils. So right now, you have to consider John Bruno one of the greatest coaches in Cape Atlantic League boys basketball history. And yesterday, he just kind of seemed to be overwhelmed by what has happened, not able to kind of process it. But he was extremely happy to see his players because, it's kind of true what Fred Shiro said, back in 1975 for the Philadelphia Flyers, win today, walk together forever. I mean, these kids from Ocean City will be linked, the rest of their lives. And Coach Bruno will never forget that day either. So really, a remarkable day, and what makes high school sports, or covering high school sports, so rewarding and so fun to be a part of.
For more coverage of yesterday's championship win, as well as everything going on in sports, Mike McGarry, Press of AC, McGarry on X, pressofac.com to get all your coverage. And he joined us right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Mike, we will talk to you on Wednesday.
All right, looking forward to it, Josh. We'll see you down the road. Thank you.
Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Streaming live on YouTube and X at 97.3 ESPN on YouTube. Don't forget, your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway is still to come here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, we are broadcasting live from the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. Get in on all the action at Ocean Casino Resort's Madness Zone, March 19th through the 22nd. Catch every college basketball game and place your bets at Atlantic City's best sports book while you eat, drink, and watch all the college basketball games. Turn it into a getaway with Mad Zone's hotel package, an overnight stay, plus $50 food and beverage credit. Taste Atlantic City through March 31st with the 3-course menus. Book now at theoceanac.com. We'll check you on the text board coming up on the other side, 609-403-0973. And don't forget, Cayden Steele will get more into the Eagles with us from NJ.com at 3 p.m. Football 4 with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, affiliate voice at 4. Nick Earnshaw from Knicks Nuggets at 4:30. And the aforementioned Ocean City High School boys basketball coach, now state champion head coach John Bruno, which is coming up at 5 o'clock here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
I've always wanted to learn French, but the app I tried didn't help.
If you want to memorize words in another language,
All right, that's the sounder. Callers number 7, 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. You call in, you qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway Thursday, March 26th. Sports Bash Mike Gill, broadcasting live from Anchorage and Summers Point, and you will have the opportunity not just to come out and hang out and watch the Phillies opening day with Mike Gill and the Sports Bash, but you also can win a trip to a Phillies game in Baltimore this summer. Win the trip, you got to call 609-573-3776, 609-573-3776. You qualify for the trip to Baltimore. You must be present at the Anchorage Summers Point Thursday, March 26th. Coming up on the other side, Cayden Steele from NJ.com will talk all about Dallas Goedert, AJ Moore with the Eagles on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, Philly from Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. 3 o'clock hour being brought to you by Broadleys Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadleys is your trusted source for heating and plumbing service installation for generations. With this crazy weather, you may need your air system checked out. Give them a call at 609-390-3907 or visit them online at broadleys.net. We get back in the Eagles conversation right now. As promised, Cayden Steele, NJ.com, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN as the Eagles bring back Dallas Goedert, which is probably a surprise to a lot of people. So what could that mean for the team the rest of this offseason? Cayden Steele joins us right now on the show. Cayden, welcome in. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
I appreciate you jumping on, and I think you and I probably both agree that no one really, if you would have asked us like a month or two ago to see Dallas Goedert back in an Eagles uniform. So what does it say to you that Dallas Goedert, he didn't just come back, he didn't just agree to push back his void date twice, but then he comes back for less money than he signed for last offseason?
Yeah, I think the first thing it says is that Dallas Goedert wanted to be back in Philadelphia. You don't always see players, be appreciative of being asked to take a pay cut the following offseason, have to take a pay cut and then take a less the next offseason. It usually goes the other way around, which is why 2 months ago I would probably say the same thing as you. Like, I just feel like this was the last, year for Dallas and the Eagles. He was going to ride out this year, get paid elsewhere, but it appears that he wanted to be back. I mean, that's obvious by him coming back on this 1 year. I think it's reported about $7 million. It also says that I'm not sure how much Dallas Goedert was going to get on the open market. Maybe another team would have signed him. I saw some reporting that like the Broncos were interested in him from Albert Breer, but like how much money was he really going to get? The tight ends aren't getting paid a ton in the open market, and he's over 30 years old. He has a long injury history. My guess is that the interest really wasn't there from other teams that were going to give him a contract that he felt was worth leaving Philly. Philly wanted him back. And then obviously there was the financial incentive where, the Eagles were going to take a $20 million dead cap hit if they didn't re-sign him. So I think it worked out for all sides. But yeah, if we're talking 2 months ago, I thought Dallas was probably in his final year. So it's interesting that they have him back now. And I guess you could say they have less of a tight end need going into the draft at least.
Well, in theory, we know in years past, Cayden, that the Eagles have historically drafted a tight end before letting one go, right? They had Ertz when they drafted Goedert. They had Brent Selleck when they drafted Zach Ertz. They had L.J. Smith when they drafted Brent Selleck, and so on and so forth. I think, and again, I'm projecting a little bit, so you can correct me. I think the Eagles were hopeful that Grant Calcaterra was going to be the next guy, but I don't think he has worked out the way they had hoped. So I think maybe they will go into this draft and maybe get a guy because Grant Calcaterra is also back on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, I don't know if they felt Grant was a guy. I still do think they like Grant. There's a reason they brought him back. He's not a good blocker. We all saw that last year, and it led to a lot of criticism. But they also put him in really bad situations. It's just not what he is. He's obviously not guaranteed to make the roster with the deal they gave him, but he's back in the fold. But I would agree with you that, this gives them an opportunity to draft and develop another tight end, maybe who's not a first or second round pick. Someone they draft, let's say in the third round this year, they had 2 third-round picks. Someone they draft in the fourth round. It is a pretty good tight end class in terms of depth. There's a lot of guys. There might not be that like star talent that really stands out when you hit the third, fourth, and fifth round, but there's a lot of guys that could develop into a name that you just mentioned, like a Brent Selleck type player, Dalton Schultz type player, at least like a solid starting tight end in the NFL. And they'll have an opportunity to take that guy and develop him for a year before he even has to step in the starting role. So I think tight ends on the table for them, but at the same time, it kind of draft proofs it where, if you don't love the player in the third or fourth round or even the second round, you don't have to necessarily force it. You could wait to next year in 2027, which is supposed to be a much better draft class overall, and you feel like there would probably be some tight ends in that class as well.
NJ.com, Eagles beat writer Cayden Steele joining me here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. You can give him a follow on the X platform at Cayden_Steele19. Cayden, when you think about now this offseason, they've given a lot of 1-year deals, right? They gave Rick Woolen a 1-year deal, Calcaterra, Goedert. How much of these moves do you think is in part Howie understanding that, hey, we got a lot of guys to re-sign down the road, and I'm not going to have my hands tied for 27, 28, and 29?
It has everything to do with it. I think this was his strategy going into free agency. He talked to us before the combine, saying, not to expect any flash moves. And I think when he meant that, he was talking about 1-year deals. Honestly, I think the players that they got, like Tyreek Woolen, the quarterback from the Seahawks, at his best, he's a really good player. I know there's some inconsistencies there, but he's a top line starter when he's playing at his best and he's consistent and he's not drawing flags and doing unnecessary mistakes like drawing taunting penalties. And then they brought in Arnold Ebiketie, who had some pass upside. He was kind of used in a limited role with the Falcons, but people really like him. So they brought in 2 young players of upside there. So honestly, they did better than I even anticipated. But with the 1-year deals, that's part of the strategy. They don't want to invest long-term in these guys when they have to play Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell and Jalen Carter contract looming and other players on that defense potentially in the coming years, like Moro Jomo even maybe. So he's not going to go out and invest long-term in outside free agents who are good, but I don't think he thinks are better than the current guys that he has, and give them a long-term deal and then sacrifice someone like Moro Jomo or someone like that on defense. So I think that's part of his strategy. And then also, with bringing guys on 1-year deals like Tyreek Woolen and Arnold Ebiketie and even Dallas Goedert, you're hoping that they have big years next year, and the next offseason they get paid a ton of money by another team on a long-term deal, especially like Tyreek Woolen and Arnold Ebiketie, get long-term deals, and then you recoup that with comp picks the following draft. So I think it's all part of Howie's strategy. It's draft and develop, and then fill in free agency sporadically with 1-year deals for guys with upside that you could later get those comp picks for.
I feel like you're just pronouncing Ebiketie's name again and again, so it gets into your brain at this point, instead of calling him AK. Yeah. Apparently, I saw that he wants to be called AK, but it's like, okay. I feel like you're as a professional, you're trying to call him by his real name.
Yeah, definitely. AK is definitely easier.
It's way easier. Well, it's kind of like, it makes you think of the whole Travis Etienne or Etienne or whatever his name is, down in New Orleans. It's like, now I feel like we're all like being like hypersensitive now to call people by their name, right?
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate the two-letter nickname, though, so we can roll with AK for the rest of the time.
Well, it's also great when you're writing, right? You can just type AK here and there instead of typing his whole name, right?
Yeah, maybe less in writing, but, it's easier definitely saying, at least.
Absolutely. So let's get some other Eagles thoughts going on right here. So the team definitely has some interesting questions still to go. They have a void right now at safety. A lot of people are wondering, what they're going to do when it comes to the edge rushing position. Do you think that the Eagles are going to keep looking around in free agency, or do you think those are 2 positions that they are going to address maybe through a trade instead?
Yeah, the trade is definitely possible for edge rusher. I've seen the Jonathan Goedert thing reported by The Athletic and other people. And if that is possible, I think that's something the Eagles would be interested in. If you could get him for, a 3rd-round pick. I guess the only difficult part is that you would have to extend him. But he had a down year last year, but the previous 2 years he finished with 12 and 12.5 sacks. So one of the most underrated edge rushers in the NFL. So if they were able to get him for a fair price, I think they would potentially do it. And a fair price when it comes to the draft pick and what he's asking for. We saw they were hesitant to give Jalen Phillips $30 million. I don't know if they would give another edge rusher like that, that type of contract. Maybe they would want to get Goedert for 25, 26, 27. And if they could, I think that's possible. It seems like that's kind of died down a little bit, though. I haven't heard much about that in the last few days, so we'll see what happens on that front. The Max Crosby situation seems a little complicated for me to project them trading for a guy like Max Crosby. I don't know what it would take now. It seems like the Raiders might honestly just keep him now. You see Max Crosby putting out tweets like he's going to play for the Raiders next year. So I'm not willing to bank on that, but I think they would be interested in the trade market, and Goedert seems like the most likely option if talks continue there. And maybe they go the veteran free agent route, but there's not a ton of options available right now in free agency. I mean, you got Joey Bosa, A.J. Epinesa, the two Bills pass rushers, Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, there's some guys there, but, like, nothing that would make you feel really great about the group if you brought them in. So I wonder if it's, they either trade for a guy. I think that's probably most likely. They'll find some guy they could trade for maybe, or if they wait until the draft. When it comes to safety, though, I think they're going to go cheap there. I really do. I think they're going to bring in either, like, they're going to let Michael Carter stay as the safety. They're moving full-time there and bring in a rookie in, like, late day 2, early day 3, and they're going to let Cooper DeJean play there in the base package. I think they're going to kind of piece that together. Maybe they re-sign Marcus Epps as well. Like, I don't think they're going to spend a ton of money or make a big move at safety. I think they're going to patch it together and let Cooper DeJean play there in the base with Tyreek Woolen playing outside at corner. But other positions, I mean, Josh, I still think they're going to fill up this roster. Saw the report over the weekend that the Eagles were in the mix for Darnell Mooney. The Giants ended up signing him. If they're looking at Darnell Mooney, that tells you they're looking at wide receiver. I don't know if that is like the potential A.J. Brown replacement if they trade A.J. Brown. I think that's more the Jahan Dotson, Darius Cooper competition type of player, whether that's, there's some guys out there still like Christian Kirk and Greg Dortch and Deebo Samuel, who could fill like a number 2, like a number 3 wide receiver role. And honestly, this team needs offensive line depth. They're pretty weak there right now, and there's concerns about Landon Dickerson's injuries, Cam Jurgens' injuries last year. I think they are banking on a lot of young players stepping into that role. So I would be surprised if they didn't sign a couple of veteran offensive linemen to fill out this roster as well.
You just mentioned about the receiver thing. There's a lot of people out there who would love to see the Eagles go out and get like a Juwan Jennings. And, my looking at him is he also has an injury history, Cayden. And so it's like, I don't know if the Eagles would ever give him the long-term deal he's probably looking for. I mean, maybe you could convince him for like a 1-year Rick Woolen type of deal. Maybe they get him, but I kind of think you're right about that. I don't think they're going to go like, big name hunting when it comes to receiver, whether A.J. Brown is here or not, because you look at what, what's his name? The offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion, did what they did in Green Bay for years, right? Green Bay has never had a number 1 receiver in like a decade, basically. And they basically have found a way to do well with whatever they got. And I think most people would believe that Devontae Smith is better than anybody on Green Bay's wide receiver core.
Yeah. And I think I agree with you that like Juwan Jennings feels a little unrealistic unless his market keeps going down and down. And to your point, it's obvious that he thought he was going to get something that he isn't, because I don't know why else he would still be available. He's a pretty good player. But yeah, I expect him if let's say they did trade A.J. Brown this offseason, and I don't know for sure if that's going to happen, but it happens later in the offseason. I would expect them to roll into next year as with Devontae Smith as wide receiver 1, being the premier guy in that offense. If they were preparing to replace A.J., I wouldn't be surprised if they took someone in the draft on day 2. And then you have a veteran wide receiver to fill that number 3 role. Like I think Christian Kirk honestly would be perfect for that role. He didn't play a ton in Houston last year, but he came in that playoff game. He had 144 yards in the wild card round. He showed you he still had a ton of speed. He's a vertical threat still, which really I think they've been lacking in this offense, as good as A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have been. Like a true guy that could take the top off the defense. He has that ability, and I think that would be perfect within this offense, and he would be a complementary type player. And then like another guy would be like Brandon Cooks from the Bills. If he's hanging around later in the offseason, they're still looking for that role. He would be a good fit. So I don't see them spending big time money on this position. I think it's more, they fill it in cheap through free agency and they find someone in the draft if AJ goes and as his replacement.
Well, let's get to the A.J. Brown part of it. There's a lot of national media reporting out there that basically the Eagles are not going to trade A.J. for anything less than what they're asking for, and that pretty much there's a people who are in Boston, for example, NBC Sports Boston. They assume A.J. Brown's going to be a Patriot, but it would be an after June 1st trade. I know that NFL Network has been talking about the Eagles will not trade A.J. Brown for anything less because they don't want to take the cap hit. What is your take on all of the smoke swirling around A.J. Brown and the Eagles?
Yeah, it's been so much over the last 6-7 months, dating back to last season. It's hard for me to believe that like AJ wants to be back next year. I think the writing on the wall is like that he wants out, or he would appreciate some fresh start. But at the same time, I mean, he's under contract for multiple more years. The Eagles owe him a lot of money, and they don't need to rush this or necessarily even have to trade him. Like, I don't think that they should settle. I mean, I've seen some of that stuff you're talking about, like, the Patriots reporting out of Boston talking about, eventually they'll get AJ and the Eagles will have to lower their asking price. And I've seen like day 2 picks thrown out. Like, I don't think the Eagles should settle. That's just my opinion. He's still an awesome player. I get he might have declined a little bit last year. He's dealt with some injuries over the last few years. I don't know if he's the player he was 2 years ago, but he's still like a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. And then you look at like what the Bills got for DJ Moore. They got a 2nd-round pick. I just don't think there's any way that Howie's just going to settle for less than what he wants. I mean, I've seen a 1st and 2nd-round pick reported by the Philadelphia Inquirer and a couple other outlets. And I thought that was throughout a Quinn Williams type package. I think the Eagles ultimately have to get something close to that to move AJ, and rightfully so. I mean, you don't move on from a player of that caliber unless you get something that really helps your roster reload. And if it doesn't happen, I mean, could they try to repair whatever is wrong with AJ, whatever he's frustrated with, whether it's the offense, whether it's Jalen Hurts? I think that is probably a better route than just giving them up for nothing. So we'll see what happens. There's a ton of smoke. I mean, and it's not even just the reporting. I mean, AJ stopped talking during the last month of this 2025 season. You could just see how frustrated he's been over the last few years. I mean, it just wouldn't be surprising if he wanted out and then the Eagles were willing to move on from the right price. But, I mean, those things have to come together and it might take some time. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but I think it's a real possibility that A.J. Brown does still get traded at some point.
Cayden, before I let you go, the other news that came out today, former Eagle Super Bowl champion Darius Slay, he is retired from the NFL today. And I think a lot of people might overlook the fact that, Slay's biggest impact was probably not on the field. It was probably off the field. The fact that he was a guy who brought a completely different vibe and attitude into the locker room. He kind of became like the for lack of a better term, the poster child for how to handle the media for maybe some of the younger guys, in years before Slay got here. Cayden, you saw a lot of veteran guys that were kind of like a different talk with the media, where Slay felt like he always was willing to talk to the media. And I genuinely believe that the reason why you see guys like Cooper DeJean and others being so willing to talk to the media today is because I think Slay set the groundwork for how to be a veteran in that locker room.
Yeah, I think he had an impact on everyone in that secondary. We give Vic Fangio a lot of credit for the development of Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, and you should, because he's an awesome defensive coordinator. Same with Christian Parker last year and this year as well. But, I mean, they had Darius Slay in there in 2024 teaching them everything. I mean, I know Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean were around him constantly, asking him the questions in meetings, listening to his advice, picking his brain. And he was so influential to them and the rest of the secondary, even helping guys like early in his career. I remember like 2023, even when Reed Blankenship was younger, he would talk about how much of an impact Darius Slay had on him. And he was a different type of leader. I mean, he wasn't the rah-rah, always serious. And I know, that rubbed, fans wrong sometimes, because he would go on the Micah Parsons podcast and talk with him. He was just such a supporting guy, though, in general, not even in the Eagles locker room, but around the league of NFL players. So I think he had a huge impact there. And yeah, he was a good player to cover as a reporter. He was always open and honest about his play, about the defense's play. And I think he definitely had that impact that you're referring to, and just generally helping so many young guys develop from a professional aspect of like how they carry themselves, with media, but also with how to get their bodies right. Because, I mean, he played 13 years in the NFL. It's a guy that knew how to take care of his body, how to train and prep, and he taught those guys that, and he also taught them the professional side with media, and then also, technique-wise and skill-wise. So he had a huge impact on the Eagles, and he's one of the best Eagles cornerbacks of all time and one of the best cornerbacks, of the last generation. So
he's Cayden Steele. Give him a follow on the X platform at Cayden_Steele19. All of his Eagles coverage as a beat reporter for NJ.com. And he joined us right here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig, filling from Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Cayden, great stuff today. Appreciate you jumping on.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Josh Hennig here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, we had our 2 latest qualifiers for the Phillies trip giveaway. You can hear the next sounder coming up a little bit later this hour. But we want to say congratulations to our latest qualifiers, Paul in Delhaven and Allison in Galloway. You are in for the Phillies trip giveaway. Again, you must be present Thursday, March 26th at the Anchorage at Summers Point for Phillies opening day with the Sports Bash and Mike Gill. Hang out with everybody on 97.3 ESPN. Your next opportunity to qualify in about, I want to say, about 30 minutes from now. Still to come, we saw more Eagles talk with Geoff Mosher, Football 4 coming up. We mentioned A.J. Brown. What did NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport say about the latest on A.J. Brown? We'll get into that coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube and X. Just go to 97.3 ESPN on YouTube. Like, subscribe, watch the show.
March Madness is coming.
At midcourt, he shoots it immediately, and he makes it in! He makes it in!
To 97.3. Get ready for the madness.
Wilson all alone. Baseline three.
March Madness on 97.3 ESPN. You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
When I'm driving, I got a guy on the radio who talks to me. I can't see him, but he talks to me.
On 97.3 ESPN.
Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. 3 o'clock hour of the Sports Bash, as always, being brought to you by Broadlease Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Broadlease is your trusted source for heating and plumbing service for generations. Call them at 609-390-3907 and visit them online at broadlease.net. Streaming live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. We will check back in on the Whitehorse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973. Terry and Galloway, Steve and Ventnor. We'll get to you guys in just a bit. Also, we got messages coming on the YouTube stream at 973 ESPN. But first, I want to get to this audio. So, Ian Rappaport was on NFL Network earlier today. He had a lot to say about the Eagles. We played some of the Dallas Goedert stuff earlier. But I didn't want to ignore the A.J. Brown part of it because the A.J. Brown saga is the drama that never ends, right? It never fully goes away, and it won't go away until he's actually traded. So here's the latest from Ian Rappaport. And I want you to listen to how he describes the environment because this goes back to the conversation we were having Thursday, Friday, and Saturday previously on the Sports Bash about how there were multiple teams interested in A.J. Brown, and that my theory all along has been the Eagles were trying to leverage each team against each other, and it seems like maybe that leveraging didn't work out the way they wanted it to, but at least gave them more clarity about who they can negotiate with moving forward.
A.J. Brown's situation, I would say at various times over the last 3 days, looked like one thing was definitely going to happen, and then it was clear something else was going to happen. Like, there were various points that I really firmly believed A.J. Brown was going to be traded. And there were, originally I would say there were 4 teams that were interested that Brown would really like to go to.
So I thought that was very interesting there. He says there were people that A.J. Brown wanted to go to. And it reminded me of the previous reporting by Albert Breer from Sports Illustrated that A.J. Brown's people have been kind of like looking around to see what's out there, to see who would be interested, who would not be interested. And for me, I think that for A.J. Brown to sit there and say, I want to go to these teams, it's very, very flippant because of the reality is that if the Eagles have a high asking price for him, which they should, by the way, if Devontae Adams, who was about 2 years, 3 years older than A.J. Brown when he was traded, got a first, second-round pick, why shouldn't the Eagles ask for a first and second-round pick for a guy like A.J. Brown? He's younger than Devontae Smith. He's had more postseason success than Devontae Smith. So it's totally fair for you to ask for more. I don't think that's a crazy thing to do at all. I think the problem, though, is that A.J. Brown may want to play for certain teams, but do those teams really want to acquire A.J. Brown? Are those teams really that interested? It's kind of like the whole dating analogy, right? You may find someone interesting. You may find someone attractive. You may want to date someone, but it doesn't mean they want to date you. More from me and Rappaport.
The Rams were one, and they looked into it deeply, ultimately decided it was not for them, and they are essentially, as far as I can tell, out on this situation. The New England Patriots, who have had dialogue, consistent dialogue with the Eagles and A.J. Brown, they are still in it.
So the Patriots are still in it because the Patriots are the one that has been and always been the most interested. It goes back to the history. Mike Vrabel, A.J. Brown have a very good working relationship. He was the head coach when they drafted him in Tennessee. Vrabel never wanted him traded away. You could argue that Vrabel getting fired later was in part because they didn't have a A.J. Brown type receiver on the field anymore. So there is definitely a connection there. But you heard about the Rams part, where the Rams were interested, but then said, you know what, we don't really want to pursue this anymore. Again, back to the dating analogy. The Rams were talking. They were in the talking stage, right? But they never really went on any dates. It was never like they actually got off of the dating app or got off of the texting. They talked for a bit, and then one side said, I don't want to do this anymore. And then the other side was like, well, wait a minute, you disappeared on me. What's the deal? So there's really only one team interested in acquiring A.J. Brown at this point. Again, on March 16th, this could change. It's been pointed out by Adam Schefter, Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo, Diana Rossini, Jeremy Fowler, who else I've heard before, Dan Graziano. They have all said the A.J. Brown thing seems to change almost every single day. But if it's basically changing almost every single day, is it fair to say that A.J. Brown won't be traded? I personally don't think it is fair. And Ian Rappaport explains that part of the issue for the Eagles is if they're going to trade him, they want a big return because of that salary cap situation.
Part of the problem here, and the reason why the cap number was such a big thing, if the Eagles traded A.J. Brown now, it would be $40 million gets accelerated into their cap in dead money. If they do it after June 1st, it's just $20 million. That's $20 million less. That is a lot of money. So actually, it makes sense for the Eagles if they are going to trade A.J. Brown, which, again, there was momentum to do at various times here. Trading him after June 1st makes sense. What that means is it wouldn't be 2026 draft picks if he was traded. It would be 2027. I mean, the cap hit would be less.
Yeah, that is a big part of it. It's the money. It's the fact. Now, I think some of us could argue, and some of you might argue, be texting the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. You could say, hey, Josh, you're forgetting something. A.J. Brown could renegotiate his contract and make it less of a cap hit for the Eagles. And that is very true. According to Over the Cap, which is probably one of the best websites when it comes to tracking NFL contracts and structures, the guy who actually runs Over the Cap knows the inner workings of how the Eagles use their salary cap. So that's why a lot of us go to Over the Cap. Their diagnosis of the situation. If the Eagles were to get A.J. Brown to restructure his contract, there would be zero dead money. But there will only be a $200,000 cap savings. So you would get rid of the dead money, but the cap savings would be negligible. Why? Because now what you're doing to restructure the deal is you're fronting A.J. Brown a ton of money. You're guaranteeing money that is not guaranteed on the back end of the contract and shuffling it forward to basically get him out the door. Now, I don't know. Does A.J. Brown say, I don't care about the money, just get me out of here? Did anyone explain to him if he restructures the contract, it'd be easier in the trade? I don't know all the details of that, but I do think it's fair to ask the question, could the Eagles just restructure his contract? And the answer is yes. Is it going to happen, though? I don't know. I don't think it's fair for me to make that assumption. All right, get to the Whitehorse RV text board, 609-403-0973. Stephen Ventnor chimes in and says, I've said this before that Cooper DeJean can play free safety in a base package, covers the slots at 3-4 sets. Said Michael Carter as a rolling out as well, and I think the Eagles are going to trade for a second-tier defensive end. Well, we'll see about that. You know, the trade thing is always fluid because, you know, like with the A.J. Brown thing, you know, if someone literally just came up to the Eagles and said, here's what you want, we'll give you everything you want and more, the Eagles probably would trade him by now. It takes two to tango. So I think whether it's Jonathan Goedert, I know there's some rumors out there about Josh Sweat, although those rumors are from people who I can't tell if the real people or not online, to be honest with you. Having a blue check mark is no longer mean that you are a reputable person. It just means that you decided that $12 a month was worth it for you to get a blue check mark next to your name. So I'm not going to act like the reporting by certain people online is legitimate about Josh Sweat, but he is the guy to look at. I think Goedert is probably the more likely guy to trade for because he's coming off of an injury last year, and there might be a perspective that he might be regressed a little bit. Get him while his value is low, than when his value is high. When it comes to who does or doesn't play safety, I am going to go back to the idea that Vic Fangio has been very consistent when he has said that he likes Cooper DeJean in the slot. And unless they find a guy who is as good, if not better than DeJean in the slot, they're not moving him. So unless the Eagles are going to find, whether in free agency, through a trade, or the draft, someone who can play slot as good, if not better, than Cooper DeJean, my working assumption is he will stay at the slot corner spot unless it's absolutely necessary for him to move somewhere else. The real predicament for the Eagles is that in the last few years, they have drafted safeties. And both of them are coming into this offseason with some demerits next to their name. Makuba's coming off of an injury, so we don't know what he's going to look like when he's back on the field. He may take some time to get back up to full speed next season. Sidney Brown has shown that he's a very good special teams guy. He's a good in-the-box safety, but he's not very good in coverage. So you've drafted assets on two guys who are question marks coming into the season. So it's hard for me to look at the Eagles and say who's going to play safety because I don't think the Eagles know who's going to play safety. And it's not as simple as, hey, go out there. You should have gotten Jaquan Brisker because the Steelers signed him for $5.5 million. I don't think it's that simple. I think the Eagles are very well aware that they got to draft guys who fit Vic Fangio's system. They got to sign guys who fit Vic Fangio's system. They're not just going to add some randos. Oh, he's got a name. We know who he is. Let's sign him. You look at Arnold Kenabite today. You know, he was talking about how the Eagles scouted him in college and he wanted to go to Philadelphia. He didn't go, and that him signing with the Eagles is a full circle moment for him. Well, if you think about it, that's what the Eagles always do. The Eagles have basically a list of guys every year. Hey, we've interviewed this guy before. We have scouted this guy before. This guy is on our list. I think that's part of the conversation as well. More text coming in at 69403-0973 on the Whitehorse RV text board. Terry in Galloway says Jackson Starr is a good quarterback. Mike McGarry is being ridiculous. Let's be honest. We need to see more of Jaden Daniels, too. The AFC West is probably the best group of quarterbacks. Mendoza is unproven, but I take him over Dart at this point, says Terry in Galloway. See, I am not as sold on Mendoza as other people are. You know, the guy might be the most likable guy in the world. He might be a good human being and blah, blah, blah. I really don't know how good of an NFL quarterback he's going to be because, one, he was very mediocre before he got to Indiana. When he was at Cal, he was an afterthought as a quarterback. He was not someone people got excited about. The guy basically has one great year at Indiana, wins a national championship. I'm supposed to be sold on him for my franchise? You know, the last time I checked, winning a national championship is not a prerequisite for being a good quarterback in the NFL. May I introduce you to Craig Krenzel of Ohio State, Ken Dorsey of Miami. May I also remind you about other guys who have come out of college who we were told are supposed to be really good NFL quarterbacks, and it didn't work out. May I introduce you to the laundry list of injuries that Sam Bradford had. We can go through the list of failed quarterbacks who were really good in college, not so great in the NFL. The reality is that I'm not convinced, Terry Galloway, that Mendoza is going to be better than Dart at this point, because at least I've seen Dart play in the NFL and I know what his potential is. If Mendoza doesn't have the right mentor and the right coaching and the right everything with the Raiders, he's going to be a failure. Just like Sam Darnold was with the Jets, just like Baker Mayfield was going through purgatory at one point in his career. Being a first overall pick, being a high first round pick is no guarantee for success. I think people hold against Dart, one, the fact that he was drafted later in the first round, and two, I think some people just like the Giants. Some Eagle fans look at the Giants like, oh yeah, whatever, the Giants, they stink. Don't be so quick to sell on him. We'll see what John Harbaugh and that coaching staff, a good coaching staff, can do with a young quarterback. Over on the stream, I saw that Geoff and Angie were talking about the Eagles, them needing to go out and get an offensive lineman because of the Lane Johnson era, coming to an end sooner than later. For me, I would have to say that the Lane Johnson thing is definitely, Geoff and Angie, something you got to be concerned about, because you have a situation where if Lane Johnson retires after this year, who's playing right tackle? Fred Johnson was okay for periods of time last year. Matt Pryor was horrible. They don't have a real answer at that position. Now, depending on who you ask, this is supposed to be a good draft for offensive and defensive linemen. So can you find that guy in the draft? I think you possibly could. By the way, good poll by Angie. She mentioned Danny Werfel from Florida. National champion, not a good NFL quarterback. I never understood the idea that just because a guy won a Heisman Trophy or he's a national champion college doesn't mean he's automatically. And listen, I don't know what Mendoza is going to be in the NFL. To me, he's more Kirk Cousins than anything else, which is why I think Kirk Cousins should be his mentor. Kirk Cousins should go to the Raiders, sign with them, and call it a day. Mendoza is a nice guy. I don't know if he's going to be an NFL great quarterback. I'm not convinced. And if I'm not convinced, how many other NFL teams might not be convinced? I think the Raiders are so desperate for a quarterback that they don't care who it is as long as people think highly of him and think well of him. Maybe that's an unfair way to look at it, but that's at least how I look at it. Josh Hennig filling for Mike Gill on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up on the other side, the unsportsmanlike moment of the day features Chris Canty saying something that I wholeheartedly agree with. It's not very often that Canty and I agree, but that's coming up next. Don't forget your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway is coming up in about more like 8 to 10 minutes from now. Listen in for the sounder when it goes off. It's your opportunity to call to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway with the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Whether it's day or night, hot flashes due to menopause can be unpredictable. That's why there's Veoza, a prescription treatment proven to reduce the number and severity of hot flashes day and night that can start working in as early as 1 week. Based on clinical studies measuring efficacy at 4 and 12 weeks, individual results may vary. Talk to your healthcare provider about what this may mean for you. For moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms or hot flashes and night sweats due to menopause, Veoza can cause serious side effects, including liver problems. Your doctor will do blood tests before and during treatment. Stop Veoza and call your doctor if you have symptoms of liver problems, such as feeling more tired than usual, decreased appetite, nausea, vomiting, itching, yellowing of the eyes or skin, pale stool, dark urine, or stomach pain. Don't use Veoza if you have cirrhosis, severe kidney problems, kidney failure, or take CYP1A2 inhibitors. Ask your doctor about Veoza. To learn more, call 1-800.
Get ready for the madness. March Madness on 97.3 ESPN.
I'm happy that these markets are getting NBA teams because I understand what comes along with it, how much revenue it generates, being able to create jobs, opportunities for people, upward mobility, so on and so forth. I'm curious to know, how do we feel about the NBA expanding when we already know that a third of the league is going to be non-competitive every single year because of how pervasive tanking is?
That's Chris Caney this morning on Sports with Like Her, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. on 97.3 ESPN. This is probably one of the best takes Canty has ever had on the show. How on earth is the league going to reel in tanking and expand the league? Because you know what happens when you expand the league? Well, Chris Canty knows because he's a former player. I know because I don't just see dollar signs everywhere I walk in life like the NBA apparently does. I'll tell you guys what happens when you expand. The talent pool gets thinner. The rosters lack depth. You're having fewer and fewer talented players available. The NBA cannot pretend like there's a star player on every team. In order for you to be competitive, you need guys who are at worst borderline all-stars. There are not 32, 33 borderline all-stars after the main group of all-stars. Because again, you need multiple good players in your team. Look at the Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham and Jaron Durant. That's two different players. And then they have a good rest of the roster built around them. There's no way there's enough talent in the NBA to handle there being another expansion team and prevent tanking. You either got to de-incentivize people from tanking, or you got to make the talent a more equitable opportunity for people to sign players. Because guess what? You may like the idea of a team being in Vegas or Seattle, but not every player wants to play in Vegas or Seattle. There's a lot of variables that go into free agency, a lot of variables that go into why guys go where. And also, there's no guarantee that a new team in Vegas or Seattle is going to be run competently. Look around the NBA. Think all these teams know what they're doing? Of course they don't. That's our Sports Like Moment of the Day here on the Sports Bash. Tune in to Evan Canty and Michelle tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, that's Sounder. Y'all know what time it is. Call in. Call number 7 at 609-573-3776. More opportunities to qualify for you today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. But remember, it's next Thursday, March 26th, when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live from the Anchorage in Summers Point. You must be present on Phillies opening day to win the Phillies trip giveaway. 609-573-3776. You want to win the prize, you got to get on the list. And you got to get on the list by calling 609-573-3776. More Eagles talk coming up next with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast here on 97.3 ESPN.
South Jersey's official play-by-play home of the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers.
At 0 point would I ever consider not being a fan of the team.
97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Football at 4, as always, being brought to you by OCHS Casino Resort, the Fanatics Sportsbook, the place to be for all of the basketball action this month. Of course, March 19th through the 22nd, catch their Ocean Casino Resort's Madness Zone. Catch every college game and place all your bets at Atlantic City's best sportsbook while you watch, eat, and drink all tournament long. It's a Monday. That means it's time to check in with Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast in Philly Voice. He joins us right now here on 97.3 ESPN. As Geoff, it's never boring when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, is it?
No, never has been, never will be. Actually, Josh, I would say, free agency for them has sort of been a little boring now that I think about it. I mean, they lose out on Jalen Phillips, who's, that would have been a big splash had they made it. And, Dallas Goedert's nice bringing back, but, he was sort of a fixture here for a while. I don't know. Maybe they're starting to get a little boring.
Well, maybe that's a good thing then, because maybe boring is the new sign of success because you don't have to be crazy. And by the way, Can I just say, I said this earlier in the show. I think Jalen Phillips is a nice guy. Everyone seems to like him as a person. But he said the biggest load of horse manure this morning on Good Morning Football when he said the reason why he went to the Carolina Panthers is because they have a great football culture. And he's always wanted to play for a team like that. And it's like, no. You went to Carolina because they offered you $30 million, all right? We're not going to be mad at you, Jalen, to say that you had the opportunity to make life-changing money. Like, come on, man.
Well, that's true, but I think that not only does he not want to just say it's about the money, I think, when you're trying to acclimate yourself to a new town, you try to praise it. I mean, yes, this has been going on for the longest time, athletes saying whatever. I remember, it's funny, I remember a long time ago, you'll remember this, like Mike Hampton. You remember the left-handed pitcher?
Oh, yeah.
Mike Hampton,
he went to the Rockies.
Right. The Mets trade for him. He finishes out his year. Mets think they're going to re-sign him. He goes to sign with Colorado. Big deal, which was a terrible career move. But and in his press conference, he makes some remark. Well, the school system was just unbeatable. You can't beat the school system in Denver, Colorado, I guess, or whatever, the Colorado suburbs, right? And the New York media had fun with it. Oh yeah, like there's really no good private schools in Manhattan or Queens or anyway, Brooklyn. I mean, New York City school system, private school system, where it probably costs you $25,000 a year to go, right? I'm sure that's not very good. Just no. Like I said, people say anything.
Well, here's what we'll say. I think probably the biggest news Eagles-wise of the last few days is the Dallas Goedert signing yesterday, because this is a guy, Geoff, that agreed not once but twice to push back the void date. So he obviously wanted to be here.
Correct.
And again, he's actually going to make less money than he made last year. So, what does it say to you that a guy in Goedert who theoretically could have opened free agency, could have gone through the 15 minutes of dating, cycle with everybody. He said, no, I really want to be here, especially after everything that's happened over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Hey, he must like the football culture here in Philadelphia. Now, look, hasn't been a very fruitful market for tight ends. And, Njoku's still out there. Waller's still out there. Jonnu Smith is still out there. I forget, someone signed for a deal that was around $8 million, $7 million that I thought might get more. I think it made it a little easier and more reasonable for both the Eagles and Dallas to make it work when the market for tight end, for whatever reason, and that happens every free agency, right? There's like a market that hits and there's a market that doesn't hit. And tight end just didn't hit.
Do you think it didn't hit because also maybe the draft class, that people are looking ahead to the draft class and saying, hey, I I really want to get in on some of those guys instead of spending money on guys who maybe they're upside. Like no offense, Isaiah Likely, he got a nice little contract from the Giants. I think the AAV is like $13 million. But you could argue that there's 5 or 6 guys in this draft class whose potential is higher than Isaiah Likely.
Yeah, it's possible. That certainly is the case. I think it's just there weren't that many young tight ends like Isaiah Likely. The guys I just mentioned were, whether it's Njoku or Goddard or Jonnu Smith or Waller, right? I mean, they've all been around the league. If there was, Likely, I think if there was if Goddard was maybe 3 or 4 years younger, he probably would have hit a little bit harder on the money, or better on the money scale. But you're right. Teams are seeing the age of tight end and seeing how good of a tight end class this was. And last year, a couple of teams loaded up on there weren't that many good tight ends last year, but it was a top heavy group. It just created a year where the market wasn't so great.
Now, of course, Goddard signs for a 1-year deal. So did Grant Calcaterra. So not trying to put words in the Eagles' mouth, but to me, signing 1-year deals to me is a clear signal that they are going to look at tight end in this draft, considering they have 2 guys under 1-year contracts.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. They had to do it whether they signed Goddard or not, because you're right. You look at Goddard 1 year, Calcaterra 1 year, Munt 1 year, Latu last year of a 2-year. So technically, they might have 0 tight ends under contract in 2027. So they need to rebuild the position. It's a position that they've done an excellent job, if you think about it, for almost 2 decades of being able to go from one to another starter, right? From Chad Lewis to LJ Smith to Brent Selleck to Zach Ertz to Dallas Goedert. Okay, I don't think I missed any starter in between there. That's about 15 to 20 years of really good tight end play. I thought they were going to do it last year. It didn't work out, but by bringing back Goedert here for a year, it does allow them to draft a tight end. And if they don't draft a tight end this year, then maybe suddenly they don't value the position the way they used to. I don't think that's the case, but I really think that it makes a whole lot of sense for this year for them to be able to draft a tight end. But they don't have to reach now, right? Because you have Goddard. You don't have to use your first-round pick and say, I can't line up and play a football game right now unless I use a first-round pick on a tight end, because you have Goddard and Calcaterra and a little bit of depth there.
Absolutely. Geoff Mosher joining us from the Inside the Birds podcast and Philly Voice at Geoff P. Mosher on the X platform here on the Sports Bash Football at 4 on 97.3 ESPN. So with that being said, okay, so Goddard's back. We got that check mark, right? They bring in Reek Woolen. They got that check mark. There's still a couple other situations where they have holes to fill, right? Safety being one, edge rusher being another. We know the Eagles in the past, some of their biggest moves, Geoff, have not come during the month of March, or they've come late March, April, May. So how important is it to remind people out there that Howie's season does not end when the first week of free agency ends? Because Howie's season is all season, right?
Oh, I mean, LeGarrette Blount, a huge part of their first Super Bowl success, I think, was a May signing. Mekhi Becton was signed the day after the third day of the draft, so like April 29th or 30th, 2 years ago. CJ Gardner-Johnson was acquired via trade a week before the start of the season.
August 30th.
There you go. Jahan Dotson as well, although I wouldn't call him as high impact, but the point is the Eagles Chris Long, the Eagles will continue to always add to their roster all through. And Howie says this all the time. The offseason is not the first 2 weeks of free agency. It's not just the draft. There's plenty of time to use the trade market and late signings to help your team.
I always will remember LeGarrette Blount was when he was signed by the Eagles, Geoff, because he was signed on my birthday.
Oh, what a happy birthday that was for you.
Yeah. It's like, happy birthday, Josh. Here's LeGarrette Blount. He's going to run people over for a Super Bowl championship.
Give you something to talk about that day on the radio. I will say, though, that you make this point, and I think that people can be misled, though, when you say, they need depth. They need a guy at safety, right? And they need a guy at wide receiver, but they actually need more than a guy. I mean, these are positions they need a starter and depth. Take a look at safety, right? So they have Andrew Mukuba. Their number 2 safety right now is whom?
Carter?
So he's in the mix. And he's not even played safety in a long time. Sidney Brown is not going to play defense for this team. We know that.
I'm so glad you said that. I said that before you came on, Geoff, about how I think the Sidney Brown lack of development as a coverage safety and becoming more of a special teams guy has kind of pigeonholed the Eagles roster-wise to have a guy who, like, they want him for special teams, but he ain't going out there and starting 17 games at safety.
Right. So you look at the situation and you say you have one starter and you have really nothing after that you feel really confident about if there's an injury. So they absolutely need a safety, and then they need a number 3 safety. Which could come by the draft, who knows? But and same thing, a wide receiver. A.J. Brown stays, that's great if he does. If not, they of course need an outside wide receiver, right? Him and Devontae. But who's their number 3 wide receiver right now with Jahan Dotson gone? I mean, and that's why I think they really need to get themselves a real, true slot wide receiver, not a Z miscast as one the way Dotson was. And when Adam and I were talking about that on the podcast that dropped this morning, I asked him to read me the list, and I was like, hey, you know what? There's like Keenan Allen and Adam Thielen, and there was somebody else he mentioned. And I'm like, Keenan Allen just had 80 catches, last year for the Chargers. That's pretty good for a guy his age. Get a guy like that, 1-year deal. Obviously, some of them may want a little bit more than just a veteran minimum. I don't know. But I would take Adam Thielen. You're not playing this guy 70% of the game anyway because you're still going to be in a 12 personnel decent. But get some guy who's played the slot and knows how to play it, and then build your depth. Missing on Anaya Smith a couple years ago hurt them. Johnny Wilson's injury last year hurt them. And Darius Cooper, I liked what I saw from him, Josh, and I think he can be a player in this league. I think he's probably more of an outside receiver. They did play him in the slot when they wanted to run and put him in there because he's a big body guy. Maybe he can acclimate it, but you can't bank on that.
No, and by the way, one guy just got taken off the market just now as we're talking, Christian Kirk. He just signed
that was the other guy.
He just signed a 1-year deal with the 49ers.
Which is so smart, right? And oh my man, the Niners, what a quietly good offseason they've had, right? With Mike Evans, they bring back Dre Greenlaw, they just signed Kirk. They're going to get through that Brandon Ayuk situation. They obviously have a good offense. We know that. They'll get Bosa back from the ACL. It's a team that won 12 games with like popsicle sticks and gum of a roster, right? Especially on defense. So that's a really smart signing by them. That was one of the guys Adam mentioned that I thought would be perfect for the Eagles.
Does Kirk then signing with the 49ers make Juwan Jennings more interesting for the Eagles?
Sure, and that's the kind of guy I think would really function well. But I would say you could probably look this and Google this. I think throughout his 49ers career, he's kind of wanted a decent amount of money for who he is, right? I mean, he's always seemingly asking for more money. The Eagles are not putting out a lot of cash here. So, but listen, and the Eagles still have to go get themselves an edge. So that's the other conversation. Who's left? Nobody in free agency that's going to give you the equivalent of what you were hoping for out of Jalen Phillips. So now you have all that money to spend that you were going to spend on Jalen Phillips. Where does it go? Because now Howie's got to be creative in the trade market, find an edge, and then maybe give that guy an extension.
See, my problem with Jennings is the injury history. This guy has had numerous injuries over the years, but he keeps demanding he wants more targets. It's like, well, get on the field, man. Like you want more targets. Can you play? Can we throw the ball? Like I think that's always the problem with some of these guys, and that is like they value themselves. I don't blame them for valuing themselves so high. Look at Jalen Phillips. He took a huge gamble at the free agent market. He cashed in big. Good for him. Yep. But like Juwan Jennings has some self-awareness to be like, hey, if no one's going to want to give you the money, gotta go get something. Like I think the Rick Woolen deal should be the model for a guy like Jennings to be like, go get a 1-year deal and just ball out and then go at the market again.
Yeah, that's not a bad suggestion. You know what? All he has to do is use the tape against the Eagles game to show what he can do because he made the Eagles look silly on a couple of big catches in that game.
Couple more here for Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, Philly Voice. Check out all of his writing about the Eagles over there. Other news that came out today, Darius Slay retiring officially from the NFL. Now, I will clarify, he has been talking about retiring after 13 years for about the last 3 years. So if you haven't listened to his podcast, he has talked about on his pod about how he wanted to play 13 years and then retire. So I don't think anyone's surprised, but I do think it's an opportunity for us to talk about the value that he brought to the Eagles because I remember when he was acquired, Geoff, there was a long dearth of like good corners for Philadelphia for many years. And you could argue that the Eagles would have not had the success, not just on the field, but the development of the younger players like the DeJeans and the Mitchells, if Slay wasn't on this team for those years.
One of the most significant trade acquisitions by the Eagles over the last 25 years. I mean, Jason Peters probably number one, right? But you can put Slay. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, obviously A.J. Brown up there, but you know what? Slay is in that mold, and because you could even I don't want to put him above Peters because Peters is so good, but honestly, they won the Super Bowl without Peters because he was hurt. Slay was so vital because, as you just mentioned, for years, for 20 freaking years, the Eagles were drafting corners, signing corners, trying to get corners, and they did win their first Super Bowl without Slay. He wasn't on the team then, but they were just getting by. I mean, they gave up 500 freaking passing yards in the Super Bowl. But Slay was finally the answer. I mean, it was sort of like the white whale for the Eagles, right? Like finally they had a corner who was good. They only had to give him a 3rd and a 5th round pick to get him. And that first year was 2020. So it was rough because the team was just terrible and imploded, but it started to pay off very next year. He was a Pro Bowler again. And then the year after that, they win a Super Bowl. And then he winds up sticking around a couple years longer, and he winds up making 3 Pro Bowls. Go find a cornerback to make 3 Pro Bowls for the Eagles in the last 20. I think Lito made 2. I don't think he made 3. And I don't think Sheldon made any, actually. He was really good, but sort of solid. I'd have to go back and look at Lito.
Lito made 2.
Lito made 2. All right. This guy made 3 just with the Eagles, and I think 6 in his career. So he was and first of all, also not to be forgotten, he was a glue guy in the locker room. The young kids, especially Quinyon Mitchell and DeJean, learned a lot from him. He was great. Accountable. He was accountable. He was good with sports writers. Not that that matters, but he set a good example.
But there's a reason why it matters. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why that matters. Sorry to interrupt you, but I got to point this out because I pointed this out earlier. He showed the younger players, he showed the other players how to handle the media.
Yeah,
that's
he set
important.
The example.
Because I don't think Cooper DeJean would be as talkative as he is with the media now. I don't think Jordan Davis would be evolved into the talkative guy with the media now if Slay didn't take those guys aside and directly and indirectly show them the way.
Very possible, Josh. I mean, Cooper and both Quinyon and Cooper came from like these small market. Iowa's a big college football team, but it's a smaller market, right? And of course, Toledo. So yeah, I think he did set an example. And again, I mean, I think for the Eagle fan to finally see a cornerback come in here and work out after some really, disastrous years in between, say the Lido and the Sheldon and the Asante Samuel years, it was probably really a welcome addition. It was definitely a welcome addition.
And with that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles draft more secondary depth in the draft this year. I mean, just because of the fact, like you said, it's not just safety. It's, people keep bringing up to us on the text board, Geoff, about how, Cooper could play safety. But my mind keeps going back to how many times has Fangio said, we're not going to play Cooper somewhere else unless we have a good enough slot corner. So They've made it very clear that, at least Fangio has, I think the Eagles have had through their moves and their signings, that they're not going to move Cooper DeJean to safety unless they have a bona fide slot corner.
I agree with that. I agree. And that's why Rick Woolen is here, because they want him to be a good enough, at least good enough outside corner to keep Cooper DeJean in the slot. And we'll see what they do at safety. I still think, I know when the Eagles drafted Cooper DeJean, they viewed him as an outside corner. That's how they viewed him. Some teams viewed him as a safety. Eagles viewed him as an outside corner who could thrive in the nickel. So just because they're hurting at safety doesn't mean Cooper's going to play there. It's funny because around OTAs last year was a big storyline. He was practicing at safety on the first team base defense, and then that just went away because he started practicing at corner on the first team base defense.
Well, we will continue to monitor how the Eagles progress through the offseason. By the time Geoff Mosher returns with us back on Wednesday here for Football at 4, the Eagles could have made another addition. And then we'll have to learn how to pronounce that guy's name, right?
We will. Hopefully we will. Who's your Final Four, Josh?
Oh, my goodness.
You want to tell me Wednesday?
I'll tell you Wednesday. Dude, I haven't even done a bracket yet. Like,
oh, come on. It's Monday. You got to get on this thing, man.
Well, I'm here by myself in the studio. I'll cry a river for a hot second. I'm doing a contest in between the breaks. I got Mike Gill texting me yesterday that people are trying to qualify for a contest. I'm like, come on, man. Do I get one day to myself? Like,
I didn't even know Gill was going to be off today. Where's he at?
This is his week to go to Clearwater.
Oh, of course. I guess Egypt wasn't enough. Jeez.
I guess it's my fault. I should have texted you and Adam and let you guys know.
That's okay. It's a pleasant surprise. All right, we'll chat Wednesday. Give me some good sleeper. I have some. St. John's got screwed, by the way, and I'm a UConn fan. Being from Connecticut and all, but terrible that they got the 5th seed in the same bracket as UConn getting the 2. That's awful.
Yeah, for me, the only thing I'm really hot on right now when it comes to the tournament is I keep waffling about how much I believe in Arizona. That's like my big thing.
Oh, I'm so with you. I'm trying to. I'm looking at that Nova Arizona second round potential matchup, thinking Nova can win that game. I do think Nova can win that game.
The crazy thing about the tournament nowadays is that for as much NIL money is out there being thrown around, Geoff, it's not like it created like that much more parity. It's not like you're gonna. I don't think you're going to see a 1 lose to a 16 ever again. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that stuff's going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I agree. I think the NIL has made the blue bloods bluer. Right. So yeah.
Just like a Duke. They got all the boozers.
Yeah. Yes. Duke and Michigan to me are the clear best. I think Florida is just a little tick below, although they could beat them. And then if 4 is Arizona, I think I actually like Iowa State a lot. They're kind of like a sleeper for me, but I don't really see anybody after those first 3 that I think I would give like a really good shot at winning.
I like Michigan State to baby scare somebody.
Every year from Izzo, sure.
Well, it's just like, that team feels like a body shot team. It's like, if you ever watch like a boxer, they go through their career and they're like a knockout artist, right? And then they run into that one guy that's like a Arto Gotti, Mickey Ward guy who just body shots you to death. Like, I feel like Michigan State could body shot a team like Duke and just like wear them out.
I could see that. And, I think they're the 3 and where the UConn is the 2. So I could absolutely see them beating up on UConn to get to that game.
All right, Geoff, I'll have some more concise answers for you on Wednesday. That'll be my homework.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed, Josh. You have to come better Wednesday.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Thanks, buddy.
Tomorrow will be better than ever. Geoff, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
See ya.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN and Yes Football at 4. As always, being brought to you by Ocean Casino Resort and the Fanatics Sportsbook. Speaking of the tournament, you want to get in on all the action at Ocean Casino Resort's Madness Zone, March 19th through 22nd. Every college game. Place your bets at Atlantic City's best sportsbook while you watch, eat, and drink all tournament long. Turn it into a getaway with Madness Zone Hotel Package, an overnight stay, plus a $50 food and beverage credit. Learn more by going to theoceanac.com. All right, coming up on the other side, it's another edition of Nick's Nuggets. Nick Earnshaw joins us to get more into, whatever on earth is on his mind. By the way, to the texter who keeps texting in about Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent, Geoff Mosher's point was that in the last 20 years, okay, I got to double check, but I think the last time Troy Vincent was a Pro Bowler was 24 years ago. Or was it 21 years ago? 22 years? Whatever it was a while ago, okay? The point that Mosher was trying to make, and maybe it kind of went over people's heads because maybe people are trying to be too much like Josh Hennig and, be literal. But the point was that in the years after Vincent and Taylor, I think Taylor was only a one-time Pro Bowler. If I remember correctly, I think Troy Vincent was like a 4 straight years he was a Pro Bowler. It was 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly because I know the one year he led the NFL in interceptions. But the larger point is that Geoff was trying to point out that in the years after, and this is something if you listen to the Inside the Birds podcast, if you watch them, like, subscribe, and download, get your podcast, Mosher and Kaplan have talked numerous times about the fact that, in the years after the Taylor and Vincent era ended, there's been a dearth of corners. because you drafted Lito and Sheldon, but they never fully reached the potential of the Taylor and Vincent tandem. And then the years after, remember, it was, Kerry Williams and Byron Maxwell, and it was dagnabbit, what's his name? Jalen Mills, right? They drafted Jalen Mills, and they kept recycling guys year in and year out. Remember the law firm of Bosby and all those guys, so. Mosher's point is that there was a basically almost a 20-year period until Darius Slay landed in Philadelphia. And you look at who Slay was from 2021 to 2024, he was arguably, he was the best corner since Troy Vincent. So I think that's more what Mosher was trying to say. I don't think he was trying to forget or dismiss the guys who came before. I think the larger point was, because you're right, Troy Vincent, he was amazing. I got to look it up exactly how many Pro Bowls he had. But, I feel like if I remember correctly, that Pro Bowl streak was consecutive, right? Let me look it up, but I'll do it during the break texter at 609-403-0973 on the White Horse RV text board. Vincent was incredible. There was a 5-6 year period where he was apex corner in the NFL. But it was the idea that the Andy Reid era didn't get him, right? He was not drafted or acquired by the Andy Reid, Howie Roseman, Joe Banner type people. And I think for what Jeff's point was that it was a while that they went so many years between having good corners, because the only good corner they drafted before DeJean and Mitchell came along was Lito Shepherd, and Shepherd was only a 2-time Pro Bowler, which in of itself is wild when you think about it, because Lito Shepherd was a pretty good guy. All right. I've rambled on enough about that point. Knicks Nuggets coming up next here on the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. March Madness is coming.
For the win! He got it!
To 97.3 ESPN.
Josh and Hennig back here filling in for Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And as always, we are streaming the Sports Bash live on YouTube. Just look up 97.3 ESPN, like and subscribe. Right now, joining us to talk about, well, knowing Nick Earnshaw, he probably has a platter full of nuggets for Nick's Nuggets, but we only have time to get to a few. So we'll see how much we get to in the next 18 minutes here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Nick, how are you doing today?
What's going on, Mr. Josh Hennig? Good to see you. Good to talk to you. There's so much to go. There's so much going on. I mean, we have March Madness. I mean, the brackets are ready. You ready for your brackets to be busted within the next couple of days? That's always a good time. The Sixers, how about them? They're on a run right now. A couple games in a row. They're winning some games. They're staying afloat. We love to see it. Flyers, they fell over the weekend. They head out to their West Coast road trip, starting with the Anaheim Ducks on Wednesday. But first and foremost, I have to start, Josh, with the WBC. I don't know if you watched any of that game last night. I sure did. I don't care if any of you did. We're talking about it. Nugget number one, the U.S. They defeat the DR, the Dominican Republic, last night. Paul Skeens was absolutely dominant. He was outstanding. Bryce Harper had a couple of base hits. It was a fun game to watch. Now, if you didn't watch it, you did watch it, let me know, Josh, because I'll tell you what, that was a fun baseball game. And I know there's a lot of criticism to the WBC, but man, the U.S. is in the championship game on Tuesday. They won 2-1. That was awesome baseball. I know everyone's talking about the controversial last strike, etc., but Paul Skeens was dominant, 4 1/3, 6 hits, 1 earned run, 2 Ks, only gave up that home run. And guess what? The U.S. found a way. Josh, did you get excited about the WBC last night?
So I'm going to be honest. I literally only watched it because I knew you were going to bring it up today. I mean, look, I said this earlier to McGarry. I'll say it to you. I think that DeRozan deserves a lot of credit for starting Gunnar Henderson.
Absolutely.
I think that was probably one of the biggest winning moves. I did find it interesting that tonight that they moved Aaron Nola back to pitch tonight, so Michael Lorenzen can pitch against the U.S. team again if they make it to the final. I thought that move was interesting. Whatever, want to read into that. I'm sure the other players will not be too happy about that. Michael Lorenzen is Michael Lorenzen, for goodness sake. But I digress. Listen, it was a good game. It's baseball. I'm not. So I look at the WBC at this point at the same way that I look at a golf tournament that's not a major. It's a casual watch. It's interesting. There's storylines, but I'm not getting that excited. I just can't.
Oh, I got absolutely ecstatic last night. I was going nuts. I think it also helps that coming off of the Olympics, the hockey team, that whole thing, there was momentum heading into this whole entire WBC, especially on the U.S. side, with the U.S. beating Canada, that whole big time game, right? I think there was momentum there, and you've heard criticisms of the WBC from lots of people. You've heard a lot of good things from the WBC, but we talk about all-star games all the time and how we don't enjoy them as much as we used to, and the players don't put as much effort in. You're seeing effort in these games, other than Tarek Skubal, who just is a disgrace that he won't pitch. Paul Skeens went out there last night, dominated.
I gotta defend Skubal here. That was not all his decision. Apparently, the Tigers talking about taking away some of his money if he didn't come back to camp.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a joke. It's not all Skubal, but it's just a joke. He really, really, really should be pitching in the championship game. Seriously, he should be. He went back. The problem is he's sitting in the dugout. That's the problem with the whole thing.
Well, they didn't say he couldn't hang out. They just said he couldn't pitch.
Then that's what I mean. It just makes no sense. It just makes no sense.
I didn't say it was good. I'm just trying to stick up for the guy. I feel like the guy's getting a lot of bad rap. I've seen the comments on social media.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I'm going to be one of them soon. He should be pitching in that final game. All right, if he can come out to the dugout, the Tigers are going to let him go out there and schmooze it up, sit down, watch, have some popcorn like the rest of us. You might as well just set him to pitch a couple innings. 2 innings can't hurt you. I mean, come on, get some work in during spring training time. I digress. It was a fun game. It was good to see the U.S. Put a full game together. I know Aaron Judge could have extended it early on. He had a couple of runners in scoring position. Harper had a double in that inning as well. But overall, that was fun baseball. I still think WBC, it might be better if they had it after the World Series. But then again, you're competing with football. That's the only thing. But it's something to watch right now. It was Sixers leading into that for me yesterday.
Listen, to me, I think it was Mike Gill's idea, or maybe he was taking like a modified version of someone else's idea. I don't know, but I like the idea of playing it during All-Star Week. The idea of making it part of All-Star festivities, like how it's like, hey, we have the All-Star game, we have the Home Run Derby, and then we do like a 4 nations kind of like round robin real quick. You don't need baseball to have just like 3 days off. Have 2 weeks. Make it 2 weeks. Have a little fun with it.
This is the argument for the Olympics. You might as well just send them to the Olympics for 2 weeks every 4 years. I don't think that's a bad idea.
The only problem with the Olympics is the Olympics usually are going on closer to the trade deadline. Baseball likes to have the All-Star game about like 3 weeks before the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's usually early July. But I think you can make a case for having it. It's once every 4 years. It's not like it's every 2 years like the WBC or every year. You have every 4 years. I don't think that should be a big deal. They can modify the schedule a little bit for a couple of weeks.
They could if they really wanted to.
Yep, it's a shame. All right, moving along. Next nugget. We got to talk Sixers. Got to talk a little bit about the Sixers, the banged-up Sixers who won a couple games in a row, 2 games in a row at home. It's been nice to see, and guess what? Today is Joel Embiid's birthday. He is 32 years of age, Josh Hennig. I saw this stat going out because Embiid missed another game on Sunday. Did you know in Joel Embiid's career, he has played 485 games and he has missed 485 games? And shout out to CBane100 on Twitter for this stat. With Embiid, the Sixers win 65.2% of the time. Without Embiid, they win only 31.8% of the time. So that, I just want to put it out there for people who want to trade Embiid and knock Embiid all the time. They win more when he is on the court. And listen, he's missed 50% of his games. I understand that, but they are a better team when he plays.
Listen, I'm not saying you're wrong. Okay, I'm not going to take that position, but I will take an adjacent position.
Sure.
Okay. If you know Embiid's going to keep missing games, stop building a team around him. How about that? How about you start building a team as if it's Maxi's team, and then if Embiid happens to play, it's gravy. Because if you're going to keep missing games, you can't depend on him to be the centerpiece. At some point, he's got to treat Joel Embiid like, hey, it's great you're here, but if you're not here, we can win games without you.
Now, I kind of agree with you in a sense, right? Like, he shouldn't be the focal point, especially anymore. Like I just mentioned, today's his birthday. He is 32 years young. I would not build a team around him going forward. That is clear. That is evident. Now, I'm going to pose this question to you and the audience. Are you in favor of the Sixers tanking the rest of the year? There's been discussion. No. All right. They're falling off a cliff. Nobody's healthy, blah, blah, blah. They should just go for a pick.
It's too late to tank. You already got 30-some wins.
Thank you. All right. So we are in agreement here. They're already way past
agreement. It's math. It's mathematics.
And by the way, the only way they would keep their pick this year is if it is in the top 4. And people want to think that it's going to be the Dallas Mavericks all over again, who somehow, some way found a way to get the first pick last year. The odds were in their favor. They were in their favor. That's the official story. I'm just going to leave it at that. Just going to leave it there. They got the first pick. Okay. And the Sixers, you would have to hope for a miracle that they would get inside the top four. The ping pong balls would flow their way, and they would find a way to end up in the top four. If they end up anywhere outside of the top four, they cannot keep their pick. It goes to the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's not the only way the Oklahoma City Thunder have fleeced them in recent memory. So that is why, another reason you do not tank. You have Maxey most likely coming back in about 3 weeks, will be reevaluated. Paul George will be back March 25th against the Chicago Bulls. That's when he's eligible to come back from suspension. And Embiid, I know it's always fluid with his case, but he will be back at some point as well. Okay, so will Oubre. I'll add that in there too. Okay, so if you have some of these guys back or all of them back prior to the postseason, prior to the play-in, wherever you end up, why on earth would you start losing now? You have the GOAT, when he's the only one on the floor that is a relatively decent player, and Quentin Grimes, he finds a way to become Michael Jordan when no one else plays. When other stars are playing and the high-profile, high-paid players are playing, he finds a way, keeping them afloat. They should have went for it at the deadline, but you got to continue to go for it, try and win, because you have a shot when all those guys are on the floor.
Listen, you've won three of the last 4 games, I believe it is. Yeah, they beat they won the last 2. I know that, Brooklyn and Portland, and they beat Memphis. They lost to Detroit. Yeah, 3 out of 4. So to me, I look at it like it's not about tanking at this point. It's about trying to stay above water until the other guys get back. Because you mentioned the Bulls game coming up. That's when they come back home from this little road trip they're going to go on out west. And if we're being frank, outside of Denver, nobody's scared of the Kings or the Jazz at this point. So you should be able to win those games. I don't think tanking is the answer, especially when you have such a small percentage of getting that pick that you want. So, look, I'm with you. At this point, you're way too far gone the tank, and I think that what we're learning more than anything else is that no matter what the outcome of this year is, Nick Nurse is done. Because the comment he made this weekend about Justin Edwards infuriated me. Because he made I don't know if you saw it, Nick, but he made the comment, for all I know you could have been cutting the audio of it up there, but he made this comment about how, well, we've been needing a guy who can 3 and D, and it's nice to see that Justin Edwards, when we gave him the opportunity, he could do it. I'm like, you didn't give him the opportunity all year. He showed you last year he could do it. What is up with this guy? I feel like Nick Nurse, he is the most tone deaf of all the Philly coaches. Like, the man doesn't get it. He's part of the problem.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, you look at the McCain stuff, and I could beat a dead horse over the McCain stuff over and over. I will on my social media. On X, I will tweet every time he continues to have a good game. He had another good one yesterday as well. It was 5 for 9 from three-point land. But that's another story. No, it's like he's not utilizing his guys in their right roles at times. And the Justin Edwards thing is, it's like, yeah, man, like, you have these guys. Why don't you put them in position, you as the coach, to succeed? They didn't do that with McCain. It's the same type of idea, right? It's not and listen, the Daryl Morey thing, the owner, tax, whatever, it's a different story. But also, Nick Nurse wasn't putting him in position, and certain guys he doesn't put in position to succeed.
Yeah, I'm over Nick Nurse. Looking back on things, people hated Brett Brown so much. And it hasn't gotten better since he left. You brought in 2 guys who have won championships, and neither one of them can get you out of the second round. So at some point, we got to stop acting like hiring the coach is going to be the answer and start realizing that the players on the court are just not good enough, and that you need a coach who maybe has less of a resume and more of an understanding of how to get the most out of their players. Because the best teams in the NBA right now, they are all led by coaches who, before they got their job, were not championship head coaches, right? Look at OKC. Look at Detroit. Look at the Cavs. Look, none of those teams have head coaches who won championships before they got there,
No, and it's evident, like, the philosophy. I don't know if it's Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse, if it's just I don't know. We know, all we know is that this is a team that has refused to keep shooters on their team. They've actually traded them away. They have not brought any in, and they've gone star hunting. So that's a little confusing. The way Nick Nurse uses certain guys at times, you're just like, why? Why aren't you being more creative? I see guys standing around a lot. I need more movement. That's concerning too. And it's funny because Nick Nurse is a championship head coach and was very good in the G League coming up, where the pace is very fast in the G League. So, yeah, it's very confusing to me, some of the stuff that is going on this year, especially with certain guys. It just makes you scratch your head. Like, really? That's how you're going to use them?
You got time to squeeze in one more here?
Do you want me to squeeze in one more?
Can you do it in 90 seconds?
I could try. In 30 seconds, I can get into Dallas Goedert.
90.
All right. Listen, Dallas Goedert, unbelievable. He signs, he takes a pay cut, wants to help out the franchise. What's this mean for A.J. Brown? I do not know, Josh. I do not know what this means for A.J. Brown. Is he here? Is he not here? I still am in the belief he's going to stay here. I think somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to keep him here. That's just what's going to happen at this point. That's it. That's my final thought on the Birds.
I think AJ's gone.
I think he's here.
I think it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube.
Okay. I've never tried that, but that's not a bad analogy.
I go back to really quick before I let you go. Albert Breer from SI said this. Ian Rappaport also said it this morning. AJ Brown's people went around looking for places from the go-to. And AJ Brown apparently gave like a list to the Eagles of like, here's what I like to go to. And it's like all those teams called and they couldn't get a deal done. Doesn't mean the deal won't get done at any point. Just it wasn't done before March 16th at 4:51 p.m.
Howie's got the power. That's all I got to say.
Nick Earnshaw, Nick's Nuggets at Earnshaw Radio. Nick, appreciate you jumping on. We'll have you back on tomorrow for more Nuggets here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
Talk to you, Josh.
Josh Hennig, affiliate for Mike Gill here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, after the Nuggets, you know what time it is. It's time to get some more qualifiers. All right, there's the sounder for all of you listening on 97.3 ESPN Radio and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. You can become a qualifier for the Phillies trip giveaway to the Baltimore Orioles game this summer. Yes, you can go. You can be on the trip, but you got to qualify at 609-573-3776. And then once you qualify, you must be present at the Anchorage in Summers Point, Phillies opening day, Thursday, March 26th, when Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live. So call in, 609-573-3776. Qualify, and then you must be present Thursday, March 26th at the Anchorage in Summers Point to win the Phillies trip giveaway. Good luck.
home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They've got him. It's a sack.
Sixers.
Oh, baby.
And Flyers.
He scored!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey.
Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on a Monday edition of The Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We are streaming live as always on YouTube at 973 ESPN. We will get back to the Whitehorse RV text board in just a bit at 609-403-0973. By the way, congratulations to our latest qualifiers for the Phillies trip giveaway. In the last hour was Ed in Little Egg Harbor and Mike in Linwood. We will see you guys at the Anchorage in Summers Point. Right now, as promised, we are going to get back to the phone lines because big moment yesterday here in South Jersey. We've talked about it throughout the show here on 97.3 ESPN. A Cape May County boys basketball team won a state title for the first time since 2002, and it was Ocean City High School boys basketball, and John Bruno, their head coach, is joining us on the phone line here on 97.3 ESPN. Coach, welcome in. How you doing the day after?
Oh, not too bad, Josh. Just getting ready back to duty. Got to go to school.
Right, got to go to school. But still, yesterday in so many ways was such a moment in time. And, for someone as yourself, can you kind of put in context for folks who are listening, you've been at this school for so many years. You've been a part of the program, the fabric of the school and the community. What does it mean for a school like Ocean City High School to win a Group 3 state title?
I just think it means the world. It's amazing what success for a local high school can do for the community. The amount of people who have expressed their congratulations, the number of people who were at the game, the people that constantly are telling and seeing the kids. It's just amazing what it can do for your community as a whole.
You have seen a lot of teams come through, and even this year, your team went through different types of ups and downs throughout the year. But it really felt like that when you guys got into this big tournament, that it felt like your guys, locked in even more and were even more focused. Is that a fair way to say it, that it felt like that it's almost like the whole season built up to this run?
Well, to be honest with you, Josh, our theme has always been, the next game. And the whole point of our theme is having the right attitude. So as each game went along, now the closer you get to the playoffs, the more you start thinking about it. First it was the Cal playoff, and we don't really worry about things until they come. Like, you wait to see where you are, wherever you're seated, what you play. When that game was over, it was a tough loss against Atlantic City. We said, okay, what's the next game? And then we knew at that point we were working towards the South Jersey. And the experience of being there last year, I think, was huge, that the kids were prepared for how intense it was going to be, and they were actually more relaxed this year than they were even last year.
So it sounds like to me that there's an element to this of, for some of the guys on your team, that being there, doing that, having it, they saying, hey, this is not brand new to us, that played a lot into the composure of the team.
I think so. And the fact that we made it to the South Jersey finals, we were able to win a South Jersey title last year, unfortunately, lost a tough one when we lost Ben McGonigal in the state semifinal. But I just thought they realized it gave them the confidence that if they did things the way that they were capable, they could be successful. And then so going through that experience last year, it really is that mentality says, why not us? And so like Group 3 is a bracket that there's some tough teams, but anyone could come out of Group 3, and we knew that. So in order to play, if we played well, we knew we might have a shot.
Talking with boys basketball coach from Ocean City High School, John Bruno, the day after winning the New Jersey Group 3 state title, joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Coach, one of the things I think that you are very well known for are your shirts, right? And I know a lot of people are wondering, what are you going to do now with that shirt after you wore it through the entire run? Like, does you put that like in a special place and never be worn again? Like, what do you do with that?
Well, to be honest with you, Josh, it started with we lost one of our best friends, one of our aides back at school in 2004 named Big Mike Baldiga. Mike was big, and obviously he wore big shirts. Hey, make a long story short, after he passed away, as a staff, we were wearing Hawaiian shirts every Friday. And I wore one the start of every game the season. But then when COVID hit, I was a shirt and tie guy, and we didn't have to wear shirt and ties to school anymore. So I thought, what better way to represent my friend Big Mike than to start wearing a Hawaiian shirt every game? But I am a little bit superstitious. So whenever we've started a streak like this, started this year, I wear the same clothes every game. So that's why you saw the same. It was going to be a Hawaiian shirt, but the reason it was the same one is because if we're going to keep winning, that's what I was going to keep wearing.
So do you try to wear it again next year, or do you say that's the championship shirt? I got to grab another Hawaiian shirt.
That might be when I need a lucky shirt. I might wear that when we need a lucky shirt, but I got plenty of them. So, that'll be somewhere special. I can tell you that much right now.
I think something else special that we do want to touch on as well is, everyone who's seen the video clip of the end of the game, you holding up the prayer card. Can you tell folks a little bit about the significance of the prayer card?
Well, I was showing that to my family. People that I wish were at the game over the last 25 years, I put the mass card in my pocket. It just so happened that today is Greg Goodwin's birthday, and he was the picture I was showing my wife in there, because I always try to take them with my game. My mom, my dad, my brothers, family members, ex-players, people have passed away that I wish were still at the games is what I have in my pocket. And I was just showing my wife and my family that Greg Goodwin was with us, especially.
Talking with OCHS City High School head coach John Bruno here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN the day after winning the New Jersey Group 3 state title. You talk about all the people who you wish you were, with you in this moment. You have coached now for 37 years, and that's a long time for anyone to be doing anything. Is there a part of you that looks back on your time as a coach and, you kind of just step back and you realize, this is such an amazing, not just winning a state title yesterday, but just the overall big picture of having this unique and wonderful opportunity to coach for as long as you have?
To be honest with you, Josh, I love coaching and I love teaching, and I love being around the kids to try to help them, in their lives, and anything I can do, any small part I can play. I've enjoyed it. I've been teaching for 43 years, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. And I know it's coming soon. I shouldn't say that, but right now it's the love of my life. And the irony is that what you said earlier was I wouldn't be able to do any of this without the supportive family that I have. My daughter came in from North Carolina. My other daughter came in from Virginia with her husband and our new grandchild, along with my wife at the game. And that meant more to me that we could share in that more than anything else. And I just think it's the community of your family, of your team, of your school that keeps me going and enjoys what I've been doing for as long as I have.
Coach, before I let you go, and I appreciate you carving out some time for us today, what is the one takeaway that you hope that the young men on your team take away from winning this championship, becoming the first Ocean City High School boys team to win a state championship since 1964?
Well, that they're always going to be state champions. And I think what Josh has made this really special is these kids are best friends. And that, to me, in this day and age of new kids coming in and leaving schools and transferring here, these kids have been playing together since sixth grade. So this is something that they're going to be able to take, and they're probably going to stay friends till they have children, and they'll tell stories about their children's, what this experience was for them. And they're going to become that team of 55 and the team of 64. When they bring up state title teams, they're going to be able to bring up the 25-26. And I think that that's going to be something that they will always forever have a memory that they will love and last for them forever.
Well, Coach, again, congratulations on winning the state championship. I know how much it means to the Ocean City community, this basketball program, the boys and girls basketball programs at Ocean City. Keep up the great work because, you're doing it for all the right reasons, Coach.
I appreciate it, Josh. And like I said, I appreciate what you, Mike, and everybody at ESPN and has done for help kids in this area, become something special. I thank you a lot for that.
Absolutely. Take care, Coach. Talk soon.
All right, you got it. Thank you.
Josh Hennig back here in the 97.3 ESPN Ocean Casino Resort Studios. Again, Ocean City High School winning their first state championship since 1964, the first Cape May County school to do it since 2002. And I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out another person who's done a great job that, Coach Bruno talked about covering high school sports. Tom Williams from Prime Events helped orchestrate me get in touch with Coach Bruno and get him on the show today here on 97.3 ESPN. For those of you who don't know, Tom Williams has been an amazing advocate of covering high school sports in South Jersey with the Cape Atlantic League, Ocean City High School, and all the schools in South Jersey. Prime Events All-Star Saturday is this Saturday at Ocean City High School. So thanks to Coach Bruno for taking the time and Tom Williams for facilitating it. They join us here on 97.3 ESPN. And, to me, it's more than just winning a championship. It's the amount of time that Coach Bruno has been there, because to me, he is Coach Bruno. When I was in high school, when I was the most not great basketball player on the planet when I was in high school, I was on the bench watching games, and he was coaching on the other sideline. And for me, he's always going to be a coach. Even the years I've used to call high school basketball games in my previous radio job. To me, someone who's been doing it for as long as he has, to see him accomplish that, and to see the way the players embraced him, and to see the way everybody just the euphoria of the entire community yesterday when I was watching the game online. I was way more interested in Ocean City playing the game yesterday than I was the WBC. The WBC was background noise for me. Watching Ocean City have that opportunity, watching the stream online was just, it was just once in a lifetime. You see a local team win a state championship. It's not been done in Cape May County since the Middle Township team did in 2002. And if I'm to be blunt, I wasn't sure if we'd ever see a boys team ever win a state championship game, because that for two reasons. One, because the boys team in 2002 was such a unique collection of talent and players. And the other reason is that in today's world where kids can go wherever they want, right? You don't have to stay in your community. You could be a kid who grows up in Upper Township, and through the school choice program, you could choose another school. You don't have to go to Ocean City. You don't have to always go to the school in your community. So for that collection of young men to all stay together, play together, and rebound from last year and come back and try to accomplish the same thing this year, it's just a credit to the young men. It's a credit to the program, and it's a credit to the coaching staff. And I thought it was important for us to highlight that the day after the championship here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to the Whalers RV text board in just a moment at 609-403-0973. And I kind of tongue-in-cheek threw that in there about the WBC, because someone texted in earlier to the show, didn't leave their name. This is, how can you not love the WBC? It's an all-star game with future Hall of Famers all playing their butts off. To me, it's not about loving or hating a WBC. It's about the fact that I'm the type of sports fan, and I've always been this way, and maybe this is, old man shaking his fist at the cloud kind of vibe, but I'll own it. I'll accept that energy, okay? Nick Earnshaw mentioned it in passing before. I am more intense about this than Nick Earnshaw is. It's the idea that I want sports to be played and highlighted when it's their time. The WBC is happening at a time that my interest in baseball is not very high. I'm just being honest. This time of year, I always tell people, for me, from September to January, I am so hyper-focused on football. Am I consuming the other sports? Yes. But I'm partly doing it because I'm a fan of the other sports, not because I'm really that excited to watch them. I'm trying to keep up with everything. It's part of the job. It's part of what I love to do. I'm fortunate and blessed to have this job. So for me, when there's a Sixers game on in October, November, I'm not necessarily looking forward to watching the game all the time. Sometimes just all right, I got the Sixers game to watch, but I'd rather be watching, some random college football game, right? So to me, the WBC, it's interrupting a time of year when football is done and my mind is transitioned to hockey and basketball. That's what this time of year is for me. February and March, it's hockey, it's basketball. Baseball starts in April. And even the baseball in April, I don't get that hyper excited about because of the fact that I got other things going. The NFL draft coming up, the NBA and NHL playoffs get started. So to me, I am a seasonal sports fan in terms of like my excitement and my interest. So no, I don't love the WBC because it's happening at a time of year when I got other things to watch. I have other things going on. And frankly, if you would have told me that the Ocean City championship game was at the same time as USA WBC game, I know what I'd be watching. Does that make me nuts? Maybe. But I care way more about those kids winning that state title than I do about USA with a bunch of millionaires having to win a baseball game. Just me. So, if that makes me old man shaking my fist at the cloud, that makes me ridiculous, so be it. But thank you, anonymous texter, for grinding my gears, is what's his name from Family Guy would say. Let's get back to the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Of course, Whitehorse RV Centers in Williamstown and Galloway. Your RV adventure starts here at Whitehorse RV. James in Delaware chimes in at 609-403-0973. He says, speaking of better draft picks, I wonder who's played more games in their career, Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid. He goes on to say, why not bring in a new coach after Joel is gone? Well, a couple of things there. One, I think we all can agree that it doesn't matter how many games they played, Joel has had the better career, right? It doesn't matter if you're a Ben Simmons hater, sympathetic, whatever you may be. The number of games played, to me, is less significant than the accomplishments of Joel's career. He won an MVP award. He's the first one to do it since Allen Iverson. 76ers history is not full of a bunch of legendary MVP award winners. This is a guy who is a multiple-time all-defensive team selection. 5 times All-NBA. I think he's, 7 All-Star selections? So that means in his career of 485 games played, he has accomplished more than almost anyone else has in a Sixers uniform in that stretch of time. So, now, yes, in the most literal sense, who has played more games? It's Joel by 100, okay? Ben Simmons has played 383 games. Joel's played, 485? Yeah, so it's 102 more games. But James and Delaware, it's less about the fact of how many games they played. It's about the fact that Joel has done more than anyone else has. And for as frustrating as his injuries are, for as exasperating this organization has been, putting the best team around him at times, for as frustrating those playoff losses have been when fill-in-the-blank player does not do their job, right? One year, it's Tobias Harris. Another year, it's Ben Simmons. Another year, it's Jimmy Butler. And another year, it's whoever. Joel Embiid is not available. You know, he's eating too much Chick-fil-A, whatever it may be. To me, I feel like as sports fans, we cast our frustrations with the team on the Joel as like he's like some symbol of everything that's wrong with the team. When I would say he's the only thing good with the team until Tyrese Maxey got drafted. Before Maxey got drafted, there was nobody on this roster that you woke up in the morning and you saw the Sixers were playing that night and you were saying, I can't wait to see that guy. Nobody drafted. Jimmy Butler, but you traded for him. Nobody in this town ever fully embraced Ben Simmons. Nobody in the Philly sports fandom ever embraced or loved or truly embraced Markelle Fultz aside from like 5 people. And for whatever reason, I happen to know 2 of those 5 people. all the other guys who were drafted, from Timothy Luau-Cabarro to Matisse Thybulle to Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor, Joel, for a stretch of time, was the only guy that you wanted to watch play. And that's why it's so frustrating. Because you have this special player who, when he finally played 65 games in a season, he wins an MVP. So, to me, I don't look at it as, oh, how many games did Joel play? I can't wait to get rid of him. I look at it as, it's sad. It's sad that we're in this predicament. But on the flip side, I still say, as I told Nick Earnshaw earlier, about, 40 minutes ago, that the Sixers' problem is they got to stop building around Joel Embiid, and they start building around Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. They got to treat Joel Embiid as if he's a bonus. You can't treat him as you can rely on him. You just can't. All right, we got more text to get to. Whitehorse RV text board is open at 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973 for the Whitehorse RV text board. Thanks to OCHS City High School head coach John Bruno for joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget your number opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway coming up. Yeah, we'll do it probably next Saturday, about 30 minutes from now. So we'll have another opportunity for you to qualify. Again, you must be present if you qualify Thursday, March 26th, Anchorage, Summers Point, in order to win the Phillies trip giveaway. Now, as a reminder, if you don't qualify, you can still come out and have a chance to win prizes. So, you qualify, you're in for the Phillies trip. If you don't qualify, you can still come out and have the chance to win other prizes, or just come out and hang out and watch the game. The Phillies opening day, it's next Thursday. I know for some people out there, opening day of the baseball season is like sacred. It's like something that you look forward to more than anything else. I read a poll question this weekend. I said, if I gave you don't have to buy it, you don't have to pay for it, season tickets for the next 5 years to any of these three teams, Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers, the overwhelming winner of the poll question on the text board and on X at 973 ESPN was the Phillies. So come on down and hang out with some Philly fans. Thursday, March 26th, Anchorage, Summers Point. Be there. I'll be here. Coming up next, Sports Bash. Josh Hennig reading more texts on the Whitehorse RV text board at 69403-0973, 973 ESPN FM. 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. And we are streaming live on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow 973 ESPN.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
Need a new car and have no idea. It's gotta be a matte black Kia.
26 matte black Kia Sportage, $129 per month. All new 27 matte black Kia Telluride, $339 per month. Plus, get up to $3,000 over KBB fair market value for your trade.
Matte black Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
It's gotta be a matte black Kia.
24-month leases, $59.99 to inside. Call 888-506-4132 for details. Offers don't combine. Expires month end.
Find what you love and love what you find at Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you.
With the lowest prices for over 30 years, find what you love only at Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly, B21.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles and tight end Dallas Goedert agreeing on a one-year deal. It's worth $7 million, but it also includes a $4.25 million signing bonus. The Eagles avoid a $20 million cap hit with the new deal. Last season, Goedert had 60 catches for 591 yards, and he also had 11 touchdowns. NHL, the Flyers in Anaheim wins tonight for a matchup with the Ducks. This is a 3-game trip in California for the Flyers, who've earned at least 1 point in 7 of their last 9 games. Anaheim leads the Pacific Division with 77 points. The Sixers beginning a 3-game trip Tuesday. They'll play the Denver Nuggets in the Mile High City. They'll also face Sacramento and Utah. Philadelphia beat Portland Sunday at home 109-103, getting 31 from Quentin Grimes. Philadelphia has won 3 of their last 4 games. And the World Baseball Classic, the U.S. in the finals. Tuesday night, they'll face Italy or Venezuela in Miami. On Sunday, they defeated the Dominican Republic in the semifinals 2-1. The sports update brought to you by Progressive. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chris Coleman. A stormy and windy night ahead, then cooler and breezy weather moves in for tomorrow and midweek. For tonight, showers and maybe a heavy gusty thunderstorm. Winds could gust over 50 miles per hour. Everything should taper off around midnight down to 32. More clouds than sun tomorrow, still breezy and high of 43. Partly sunny for Wednesday, chilly, only 40. Get your forecast anytime. Download our free station app today.
It's the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Keeping the fans entertained and happy.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
.531, the Sports Bash. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill. 97.3 ESPN FM. The 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Powered by First Bank of Seagull. Streaming live on YouTube at 97.3 ESPN. I do got some more texts to get to on the Whitehorse RV text board at 609-403-0973. Don't forget, coming up this week on 97.3 ESPN, we are your home for the NCAA tournament, all the March Madness. You can catch it all. Listen to it. Radio, mobile app, we got you. Tuesday and Wednesday, the first four coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. both days. Friday and Saturday, all-day coverage from noon to midnight on 97.3 ESPN. Yes, I will be on the air for Hanging with Hennig on Saturday. We will be broadcasting live from the Hang Time Bar and Grill in Galloway, so you're probably going to be getting more of me this week than you ever wanted. I'm just kidding. Although I will never forget the time I was out. So I got to tell this story really quick. It's actually one of my favorite moments of like because it was like my professional life meets my personal life. So, I think I'm allowed to say the name of the place I was at because, well, I'll just say whatever. If this gets me in trouble, I guess it's better. What's the saying? It's better to ask for forgiveness and permission. So, if anyone's ever met me, it probably doesn't surprise you that I'm a very talkative individual. Okay? I pretty much am the kind of person where I do go out a lot, like solo on my own, but I run into people who I know or I kind of know or I'm getting to know, and I just talk to people, whether it's someone, working behind the bar, someone who I meet out and about, it's just who I am, right? I also keep to myself sometimes. Sometimes I've been infamous for bringing my work with me to a local drinking establishment, right? Whether it be a brewery or a coffee shop or whatever, and you'll see me working on my laptop, right? But still, so I was out one time, and this was, I want to say this was around like 2019, maybe. I'm pretty sure it was before COVID. And I was out at Slack Tie Brewing Company at their old location, and I was talking to a couple people out there, and there was literally an individual who was leaving. And back then, the brewery was a lot smaller, so it was a lot easier to hear and see people in the smaller proximity than what they have now, which is a much larger tasting room. And I'm talking to a couple of people, and I don't remember what the topic was, but it was something sports related. And a guy calls out and says, I have to leave because I've had to listen to Josh Hennig on the radio all week. And I've had too much listening to Josh Hennig talk sports this week. And I know the guy meant it in partial jest, but I thought it was hilarious because that's the moment I kind of realized of my professional life, my personal life kind of overlapping was that there was literally someone who, whether they were fully serious or joking, it doesn't matter. That someone would be willing to put that out into the universe that they've heard so much of me on the radio that week, they had to leave the brewery because they were tired of listening to me talk sports. It really is one of my favorite stories. I don't even know if me telling the story does it full credit, because anyone who knows me or has met me knows that, it's who I am. I just talk to people. I like mingling with the people, or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know what the proper term is. I like to go out sometimes and just, be a normal dude. I spend a lot of time working. Sometimes you just got to unplug and enjoy life. By the way, shout out to George in Summers Point and George in Galloway. Thank you both for your feedback on the. It was great to talk with head coach John Bruno. Again, OCHS High School winning the state championship. Just what a cool moment, right? First Cape May County school to do it since 2002. First Atlantic or Cumberland County high school boys team to do it since Atlantic City did it. And that was, 14 years ago. So, and I hope everyone's staying safe out there, by the way, because it is downpouring outside. I can hear it through my headset, through the supposedly soundproof walls of the 97.3 ESPN studios. Holy Toledo, Batman. I knew it was supposed to be thunderstorms today, but that's a lot of rain. Ton of rain. Yeah, but I appreciate everyone's feedback when I can do one of those kind of interviews. It's one of those deals where, when I do have the opportunity to have a conversation like that, I always look forward to it. I always feel like part of what I love doing what I do is that I do try to keep up with everything. And even though, I do miss out on some things, like, I don't watch every UFC fight like I used to because I'm trying to keep up with so many things. I don't watch every tennis major match like I used to. Yesterday I was really trying to, once Ocean City won the championship, I was really trying to keep up with the Players' Championship and the Big Ten Championship yesterday. Purdue. Wow, Purdue, man. What a game that was yesterday. And you got the Sixers game after that. So, I do appreciate the fact that people, when people could turn on the radio and they could hear something that you might not be able to hear somewhere else. I think that's part of the beauty of the 97.3 ESPN community, right? It's the idea that, we all love the Eagles. We all love the Phillies. We love talking Sixers and Flyers. But, there's much more to South Jersey than just those things. So I just kind of wanted to, acknowledge that for me before we get it back to the birds. 97.3 ESPN. I do think it's interesting looking back on the day and the conversations as I double check to see if any NFL moves have been made that are of major consequence that do not involve punters getting more contracts. Because nobody really cares about that except for the punters. Good for them. But I do think the Eagles' offseason situation is very interesting because after talking and listening to Geoff Mosher from Football at 4, Cayden Steele from NJ.com, we touched on some of it with Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City earlier today, Nick Earnshaw with Nick's Nuggets. The fact that we still have no consensus about A.J. Brown, should that not tell us how much of a problem he is? Like, the guy is so divisive. The guy is such a firebrand and so controversial that people can't even agree, do they want him back? Do they want him gone? If you say you want him back and I turn around and say, well, he doesn't want to be here, then people kind of shrug about it. They're like, well, what are you replacing him with? And then the people who don't want him here, I always ask, well, is it okay that the Eagles are asking for a first, second round pick for him? And people say no and yes. And I think, again, for me, I look at this as A.J. Brown has created an environment where you want to like him, you want to love him, you want to appreciate him, but he's giving you so many reasons not to. And it's always frustrating to me when athletes create an environment where you don't want them to be successful anymore. I think A.J. Brown has really only been sincere 2 times in the last 2 years about anything. I think he was sincere when he put out that mental health video a month ago, the 8 or 9 minute video where he's talking about mental health and athletes. I think that was one of the only 2 times he has genuinely been fully and utterly sincere and genuine and honest and upfront with the public. The only other time was that press conference when, after the Panthers game, the press conference, the media scrum in the locker room, where they ask, what's wrong with the offense? He says, passing. And then all of a sudden the next week, they go out there and throw the ball over the yard in the Steelers, and then Jalen Hurts comes out and says, is that all what you wanted to see? For an athlete who really has no reason to be as aloof and as disconnected as he is, for him to have literally only 2 honest and sincere moments in the last couple of years, to me, says a lot about him. And I just have so much A.J. Brown fatigue. I get he's a great player, and I get that he's a beloved teammate, and he might be the most amazing human being possible. That it's like, does it matter anymore? Like, what? Let me ask you guys a question. All of you listening on 97.3 ESPN, you're listening on 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank Seattle. You're watching on the YouTube stream at 97.3 ESPN. Let me ask you a question. Let's say you had a coworker. You love to hang out with him. He's a great buddy. But when you work with him, or her, I'm not being sexist, him or her, during the course of a 5-day work week, 3 of those 5 days every week, they say or do something that is absolutely and utterly exasperating. And it's like that week after week, month after month. And now it gets to year after year. And people might be like, well, if you get rid of that person, who's going to replace them? And in your mind, you're like, I don't care. This is draining my mental health. It's draining my existence. This person is one person at the job and another person outside the job. The duality exhausts you. And that's how I look at A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is the person that you work with who you're just exasperated. You're so overworking with them. You're so over the duality, the polarity, the one day it's hot, one day it's cold. You're tired of he says one thing on this Twitch stream and says something else in the locker room, or when he doesn't show up to a press conference or a media scrum and he forces other teammates to answer questions for him. You don't need that in your life. You don't need that in your locker room. I don't care how gifted he is. I think most people would say that A.J. Brown's one of the 5 best receivers in football. Easily, right? Who's better than A.J. Brown? Aside from Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. You want to go Puka Nacua? Maybe DK Metcalf? There's not a bunch of guys out there who you would take over A.J. Brown if all things were equal. The difference is that there's not all this drama surrounding those other guys. You don't hear about this weird stuff happening with the Bengals or the Rams or the Vikings or well, what was the Seahawks and now the Steelers. All those teams have their own set of issues, but it's not this issue. And that's why for me, I have so much fatigue with A.J. Brown. And anytime anyone says, well, how are you going to replace him? Or we have to keep him or whatever it may be, I just keep going back to, if you think someone is irreplaceable, then I got swampland for you. And it's great. It's going to cost you $1 million. And I'm going to take that money and I'm going to run away. Because there's no one that's irreplaceable in anywhere of life. There are people who do great work. There are people who are the best at what they do. But if you're going to be that much of a headache and a trouble and a thorn in someone's side, are you really as valuable as you think you are? All right. Coming up, we'll wrap up the show. Josh Hennig hanging out with you. 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Streaming live on YouTube and X at 973 ESPN. One more chance for you to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway. It's coming up. When you hear that sounder, you got to call. You qualify, and you're in. And then you must be present Thursday, March 26th. Keep it tuned to the Sports Bash for your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway to the game in Baltimore this summer. Thanks to the Anchorage, Summers Point, and the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. All right, that's the final sounder for the day. Last opportunity for you to qualify for the Phillies trip giveaway contest. Yes, you and someone you like, friend, maybe not coworker, family. You and someone get to go to a Phillies game this summer in Baltimore. Yes, you can win that trip by calling 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. You qualify, then you must be present Thursday, March 26th at the Anchorage at Summers Point with Mike Gill and the Sports Bash are broadcasting live. 609-573-3776. You qualify. I'm Josh Hennig. Thanks everybody for tuning in to the Sports Bash today on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody.